Chapter 52. Martial arts were divided into 4 ranks: Heaven, Earth, Mystic, and Yellow. Each rank was further divided into 3 levels, a total of 4 ranks and 12 levels. Martial arts were extremely important to a martial artist. Not only did they affect their cultivation speed and battle prowess, but they also affected their future achievements. Because of this, martial arts were extremely valuable and could be sold for sky-high prices in various auctions. As for high-grade martial arts, they could not be bought even at a sky-high price. They were the inheritance of the great clans and their value could not be measured by money. Generally speaking, a low-grade yellow-grade martial art was enough for a clan to establish a foothold in a small third-rate city. A higher-grade martial art could allow a clan to expand to a larger city. Even the royal family of the Blue Cloud Empire only had a mystic-grade martial art. Gu Sanso could feel that the martial art Nye Tian was using was of a higher grade, so he was extremely interested. If he could obtain a mystic-grade martial art or even an earth-grade martial art from Nye Tian, he would have made a huge profit. Gu Sanso did not know that the martial art Nye Tian used was the Imperial War Fist of the 9 Extremities War God formula, a super heaven-ranked martial art. Nye Tianling looked at Gu Sanso coldly and said, "Old dog, you are not qualified to know my martial art." Nye Tian was slightly injured by Gu Sanso's punch, but it was not fatal. There was an entire realm difference between him and Gu Sanso. If not for the astral energy in his 10th origin meridian, he would have been a corpse by now. Nye Tian decided that if Gu Sanso attacked again, he would have to use his astral souls. At this moment, the Primal Chaos original coffin had 2 astral souls, the Blood Feather Heavenly Annihilation and the Roar of the 8 Desolations. Even if he could not kill Gu Sanso, he could still force him to retreat and buy time for Nye Tian to escape. "Little friend, do you know that I is a 4th-grade alchemist? Even if you are stupid, you should know what it means to be a 4th-grade alchemist. As long as you hand over your martial art, not only will I spare you, but I will also make an exception and accept you as my personal disciple. How about it?" Gu Sanso did not give up and began to persuade Nye Tian patiently. Seeing that Nye Tian was young, he believed that if he revealed his identity, he would be able to convince Nye Tian. To be able to acknowledge a Tier 4 alchemist as a direct disciple, this was something that many people yearned for even in their dreams. Grandmaster Gu Yu. Qin Yulang was immediately enraged. The reason why the Qin family invited Gu Sanso over was so that he could become a disciple of the latter. But now, Gu Sanso had taken in a disciple himself. "Shut up!" Gu Sanso glared at Qin Yulang, forcing the latter to swallow his words. Qi. Originally, he thought that Nye Tian would hurriedly agree. Who knew that Nye Tian would actually laugh, and it was a very contemptuous laugh. "Stinking brat, what are you laughing at?" Gu Sanso's expression darkened as he scolded. Nye Tian laughed for a long time before he finally stopped and scolded, "Old dog, do you think I'm a 3-year-old child? You have a big beard and you're only a Tier 4 alchemist. With your alchemy skills, I wouldn't even accept you as my disciple, and you actually want me to be your disciple? You're really shameless." Nye Tian couldn't help but laugh, and he was only speaking the truth. In his previous life, he had 9 direct disciples, 3 of them specialized in alchemy, and even the weakest one was a Tier 8 alchemist. Now, a Tier 4 alchemist wanted to take him as a disciple, and he even put on a benevolent expression. Wasn't this just making him laugh his head off? "Stinking brat, since you don't know what's good for you, then don't blame I for what I'm about to do." No matter how patient Gu Sanso was, Nye Tian's reaction was enough to drive him crazy. "Fire Cloud Palm!" Gu Sanso shouted as he reached out his hand, and a ball of flame appeared in the air, pouncing towards Nye Tian. "War God Ling Tian!" The sword End Heaven Rend appeared in Nye Tian's hand, and with a slash, he split the flame apart. At the same time, he quickly retreated, and only then did he manage to avoid a fatal injury. Big brother Nyetian. As Nyetian stood still, he heard Nyeyuro shout. Looking up, he saw Gu Sanso holding Nyeyuro in his hand, lifting her in midair. Old dog, let her go! Nyetian was enraged, and his eyes were bloodshot as he clenched his fists tightly. If Gu Sanso dared to harm even a finger of Nyeyuro, even if he had to go to the ends of the earth, Nyetian would take his dog life. Gu Sanso laughed sinisterly and said, "Little brat, hand over your martial technique, or I'll kill your sister. Don't you dare!" Nyetian roared, and his entire body emitted a strong killing intent. The killing intent was so strong that it was almost tangible, and it pressed towards Gu Sanso. Gu Sanso frowned slightly, and his heart was filled with shock. What's going on? This stinking brat's gaze. I'm actually afraid? Impossible. I'm a Tier 3 Wanxiang martial artist, and a Tier 4 alchemist at that. Why would I show fear in front of a Tier 3 origin spirit martial artist? It must be because I'm too nervous. Gu Sanso's eyes flashed with shock, but he quickly calmed down. His eyes darkened, and the corners of his mouth curled up into a cold smile. See if I dare or not. As soon as he finished speaking, Gu Sanso suddenly tightened his grip on Nyeyuro's neck from behind. Nyeyuro's face turned red, as if she was going to die in the next moment. Bastard! Nyetian gritted his teeth so hard that they almost shattered. He was too careless. He didn't expect Gu Sanso to be so shameless as to use Nyeyuro to threaten him. At this moment, even if he used his astral souls, he wouldn't be able to guarantee Nyeyuro's safety. What should I do? What should I do? What should I do? Nyetian's brain was working at full speed. Whoa! At this time, a strange cry came from Nyeyuro's bosom, and a small figure leaped out. Xiao Guai. Nyetian looked, and it was actually Xiao Guai in Nyeyuro's bosom. Xiao Guai leaped out and bit Gu Sanso's wrist. Ah! Gu Sanso was caught off guard, and he let go of Nyeyuro with a miserable cry. Nyetian took a step forward and hugged Nyeyuro. What is this? Gu Sanso let out a strange cry, and when he looked down, he was immediately shocked. A piece of flesh was missing from his wrist. The Paishio, also known as the iron-eating beast, could swallow iron. How could a human's wrist withstand its bite? Furthermore, Gu Sanso was caught off guard. Little thing, I will kill you! Gu Sanso roared angrily, and he raised his hand to attack Xiao Guai. But just as he raised his hand into the air, there was a cracking sound, and a layer of ice crystals formed on his arm. He was actually frozen. Whoa! Xiao Guai let out a strange cry, and it took this opportunity to jump onto Nyetian's shoulder. Let's go! Nyetian didn't have much time to think, and he took Nyeyuro and Xiao Guai with him and disappeared in the blink of an eye. Gu Sanso circulated his elemental force, and after a few seconds, the ice on his arm gradually melted, but his entire arm was still numb. What kind of spiritual beast is that cub? Why is it so powerful? Gu Sanso did not recognize the Paishio, and thought that it was just an ordinary spiritual beast, which was why he suffered such a huge loss. Brat, you better not let I see you again, or else it will be the day you die. Gu Sanso stretched his arm and said fiercely. Master Gu, are you okay? It was only at this time that Qin Yulong dragged his bleeding body over. Idiot! Gu Sanso had nowhere to vent his anger, so he looked at Qin Yulong and slapped him without hesitation. Let's go back to the Imperial City. Gu Sanso did not even look at Qin Yulong as he jumped into the carriage. Chapter 53. Nyetian carried Nyeyuro and ran for a few hundred meters. After confirming that Gu Sanso did not chase after them, he stopped. Brother Nyetian, are you alright? It's all Ro-er's fault. Ro-er is too stupid. I didn't take good care of Brother Nyetian, and even implicated Brother Nyetian. Nyeyuro patted Nyetian's back with her small hands. Her face was full of self-blame, and her clear eyes were about to cry. Nyetian shook his head and smiled. He took a deep breath and steadied his breathing. He said, "Rower, don't say that. I didn't take good care of you. But I promise you, I won't let bad people bully you next time." "Brother Nyetian, you are so good to Rower." Nyeyuro suddenly blinked her big eyes and said with a serious face. Nyetian looked at Nyeyuro's cute little face and smiled. "I am your brother Nyetian, it's what I should do." Nyeyuro nodded and suddenly said, "When Rower grows up, I will be brother Nyetian's wife." Black lines appeared on Nyetian's face. "What are you talking about?" Just what is this lass thinking about in her brain? Although Nyetian and Nyeyuro were siblings, Nyetian knew that Nyeyuro was not a member of the Nye clan. She was an abandoned baby that Nyetian's fourth uncle picked up in the Breaking Cloud Mountains. Nyetian did not know much about Nyeyuro's background. Nyetian's fourth uncle died 3 years ago at the hands of the Blood Bat sect. After calming down, Nyetian made sure that Gu Sanso and Qin Yulong were far away. Then, he brought Nyeyuro back. This time, it's all thanks to Xiao Guai. Nyetian saw that Xiao Guai had fallen asleep in Nyeyuro's arms, and said in his heart. Nyetian saw that half of Gu Sansu's arm was covered in a layer of ice after Xiao Guai bit him. The sudden burst of ice energy was extremely terrifying, comparable to a third-grade spirit beast. However, Xiao Guai was only 5 days old. A 5-day-old cub could erupt with the power of a rank 3 spirit beast. If the little Pishio grew up, it would absolutely not be weaker than a heavenly emperor powerhouse. In fact, Nyetian had the chance to kill Gu Sanso when he was attacked by Xiao Guai. However, Nyetian didn't want to waste his astral souls. Not only that, he didn't have absolute confidence that he could kill Gu Sanso. If he failed, Gu Sanso would retaliate, and that would be troublesome. Most importantly, Nyetian did not want to risk Nyeyuro's life. Since Qin Yulong is a member of Blue Cloud City's Qin family, his father is the commander of the Imperial City's Imperial Guards, and his aunt is the Empress, then they must have gone to Blue Cloud City. What a coincidence, I'm also going to Blue Cloud City. We'll have plenty of opportunities to meet in the future. Just play with them slowly. Nyetian did not intend to stop here. He was very magnanimous to his friends, but he was vengeful to his enemies. As long as Qin Yulong and Gu Sanso were in Blue Cloud City, Nyetian would have plenty of opportunities to take revenge. Once again on the official road to Blue Cloud City, Nyetian was much more cautious. He no longer blocked carriages that passed by. After walking for half a day, Nyetian felt a little strange. There were simply too many carriages passing by. Could it be that something big happened in Blue Cloud City? Why are so many people rushing to Blue Cloud City? Nyetian was puzzled. Whoosh! At this moment, a speeding carriage in front of them suddenly stopped. Nyetian and Nyeyuro walked past the carriage. Nyetian looked up and happened to meet a pair of eyes that pulled open the curtain. This was a pair of crystal-clear eyes, like the stars in the sky, but even purer, causing one's heart to palpitate involuntarily. Are you going to Blue Cloud City?" the owner of the eyes asked timidly. Her voice was not loud, but it was very sweet and magnetic. She was a teenage girl of about 13 or 14 years old. Her features were exquisite, and she looked so pure and lovely that anyone who laid eyes on her would want to hold her in their hands and protect her. Nyetian looked at the girl and nodded slightly. There was no lecherous look in his eyes. Although the girl in front of him was very beautiful and charming, she was still slightly inferior to Mo Rushi. Moreover, Nyetian was not a frivolous person. We're going to Blue Cloud City as well. My name is Chuling and I'm willing to give you a ride. Is that okay? Chuling sounded a little shy. She blushed after saying those words. Of course. Nyeyuro jumped to her feet in excitement. Tugging at Nyetian's sleeve, she said, "Big brother Nyetian, I like this sister. Let's take her carriage." Nyetian gave Chuling another serious look to make sure that she didn't mean any harm. Only then did he nod. Nie Tian carried Nyeyuro into the carriage. He was about to get in himself when the coachman stopped him. "Young man, why don't you come with me?" The coachman grinned. Nie Tian looked the coachman up and down. He was a middle-aged man in his 40s. He was at Tier 1 of the All Creations, but he looked like an honest man. "Uncle Qiushan, please let him in. It's big inside." Qiuling Er's voice came from inside the carriage. "All right." Qiushan agreed, but at the same time, he pulled a long face at Nie Tian. He shook his head and gestured for Nie Tian not to go in. Nie Tian smiled faintly and said, "Miss Ling I'll just sit outside. Please take care of Euro for me." It was obvious that Qiushan wanted to keep Qiuling safe. Nie Tian didn't want to make things difficult for him, so he was willing to sit outside. Nie Tian sat down and the carriage began to move. Qiushan was a taciturn man, and Nie Tian didn't like to take the initiative to talk either. The two of them were silent the entire way. In the carriage, however, Qiuling and Nyeyuro chatted a lot and laughed every now and then. Qiuling carriage was made of ordinary horses, so it didn't travel very fast. After a whole 5 days, the carriage was finally about to enter Blue Cloud City. But what Nie Tian didn't expect was that there were thousands of carriages at the city gate. The gate was blocked so tightly that not even a fly could fly in. Do so many people enter Blue Cloud City every day? Nie Tian couldn't help but frown as he looked at the endless line of carriages. Qiushan lit a pipe and took a deep puff. "Young man, don't you know? Tyrant Cloud Academy will be recruiting students in 3 days. These are the people who will be joining them." Tyrant Cloud Academy? Nie Tian was confused. Cough, cough, cough. "Young man, don't tell me you don't even know about Tyrant Cloud Academy?" Qiushan choked and looked surprised. He had always thought that Nie Tian was also here to join Tyrant Cloud Academy's recruitment. "I really don't know about Tyrant Cloud Academy." Nie Tian shook his head and answered honestly. At this time, Qiuling poked her head out and said, "Big brother Nie Tian, let me tell you. Tyrant Cloud Academy is the #1 martial arts academy in our Blue Cloud Empire. It's the holy land of martial arts in everyone's hearts." Holy land of martial arts? That's so exaggerated. Nie Tian was stunned for a moment and barely managed to hold back his laughter. "Yes." Qiuling nodded and said with a yearning look, "Tyrant Cloud Academy is the best martial arts academy in the Blue Cloud Empire. All the martial artists who graduate from Tyrant Cloud Academy are strong. Ever since I was young, my grandfather had told me that there were endless cultivation resources in Tyrant Cloud Academy, including high-grade martial arts techniques, crystals, cultivation rooms, spirit gathering formation, and everything else. My grandfather's greatest wish for me is to enter Tyrant Cloud Academy, so I must enter it." "You're here to join this academy?" Nie Tian didn't wait for Qiuling to continue and interrupted her. Chapter 54. "I don't even know what Tyrant Cloud Academy is? What recruitment?" Nie Tian couldn't help but laugh. Tyrant Cloud Academy, the top martial arts academy in the Kingdom of Blue Clouds, would be recruiting students in 3 days. But Nie Tian really didn't know anything about it. He had only just heard the name of Tyrant Cloud Academy. Logically speaking, Tyrant Cloud Academy was extremely famous in the Kingdom of Blue Clouds, so Nie Tian should have heard of it. Unfortunately, Moyang City was too remote and separated from the rest of the world by the Breaking Cloud mountain range. Qiuling beautiful eyes flashed and she suddenly asked, "Now that you know, do you want to join Tyrant Cloud Academy's recruitment?" Nie Tian was stunned for a moment, then he shook his head with a smile. Although Tyrant Cloud Academy was the holy land of martial arts in the eyes of others, it was nothing in his eyes. Nie Tian naturally had his own plans in coming to Blue Cloud City. He didn't want to join any academy's recruitment. "You really have no interest in Tyrant Cloud Academy?" Qiuling was stunned. In her eyes, Tyrant Cloud Academy was the supreme existence in her heart, but Nie Tian didn't seem to care at all. It was really puzzling. "I really have no interest." Nie Tian chuckled. Sister Ling At this time, Nie Yuro came out with Xiao Guai in her arms. She looked at Qiu Ling and said proudly, Brother Nie Tian is a fourth-stage alchemist. Even our great elder grandpa is no match for Brother Nie Tian. Fourth-stage alchemist. Qiu Shan and Qiu Ling expressions froze at the same time. They looked at Nie Tian in astonishment as if they were looking at a monster. Nie Tian looked no more than 16 years old. If he really was a fourth-stage alchemist, then he would definitely be a monster. Nie Yuro didn't know what a fourth-stage alchemist meant. She only heard about it from Nie Wenyuan, so she remembered it. Nie Tian smiled awkwardly and said, Yuro is just spouting nonsense. Don't take it seriously. Nie Tian didn't want to be regarded as a monster. Moreover, his current strength was limited, so it was best not to show off too much. Big brother Nie Tian is not speaking nonsense. Grandpa Great Elder personally told this, Nie Yuro explained seriously. Nie Tian said sternly, Yuro, the Great Elder is just joking with you. In the future, you must remember not to tell anyone about this. Do you understand? Oh. Nie Yuro thought that Nie Tian was angry, so she lowered her head and said, If Big Brother Nie Tian doesn't want to say it, then won't say it. Qiu Shan and Qiu Ling looked at each other. It was obvious that Nie Tian was hiding something. Sister how strong is your great elder grandpa? Qiu Ling's beautiful eyes flashed as she suddenly asked. First tier of Wanxiang, Nie Yuro answered without hesitation. Qiu Shan and Qiu Ling were stunned again. A martial artist at the first tier of the all-creation realm was no match for Nie Tian? This joke was a little too much. Why does this Nie Wenyuan tell ninth sister everything? Nie Tian blamed Nie Wenyuan in his heart, but on the surface he smiled and said, I usually play with the Great Elder, and the Great Elder always goes easy on me. Nie Wenyuan was at the first tier of the all-creation realm, but he felt that if it was a real life and death battle, he definitely wouldn't be a match for Nie Tian. He had only said this to himself, but who knew that Nie Yuro would hear it? Oh. Qiu Shan nodded slightly. He guessed that the battle between Nie Tian and the Great Elder was definitely a battle between the elders of the family and the younger generation, so it couldn't be taken seriously. Uncle Qiu Shan, how long do you think it will take for this long line of carriages to finish? Nie Tian looked at the long line of carriages in front of him and purposely changed the topic. Qiu Shan took a long puff of his pipe and said, It's impossible today. I reckon that we will have to wait until tomorrow or the day after tomorrow. The city guards will charge the carriages to enter the city, and this is a good opportunity for them to earn some extra money. They will definitely ruthlessly slaughter these outsiders. Tomorrow or the day after tomorrow. Nie Tian muttered to himself, then asked, Is there any other way to enter the city? Young man, are you in a hurry? Qiu Shan coughed dryly. I need to enter the city to take care of some urgent matters. Nie Tian smiled faintly. Nie Tian planned to first make a trip to the Alchemist Guild after entering Blue Cloud City. It would be best if he could obtain an alchemist badge and become a member of the Alchemist Guild. That way, he would be able to ensure his safety and obtain a lot of cultivation resources. Qiu Shan pondered for a moment, then pointed to a narrow and winding path not far away from the official road and said, That path leads to Mount Tyrant Cloud. Mount Tyrant Cloud is the place where the students of Tyrant Cloud Academy train. As long as you are able to pass through Mount Tyrant Cloud, you will be able to enter Blue Cloud City directly after leaving Tyrant Cloud Academy. Speaking up to here, Qiu Shan paused for a moment. He looked at Nie Tian and laughed dryly before continuing, Mount Tyrant Cloud is very dangerous. There are all kinds of ferocious second-rank spiritual beasts and even third-rank spiritual beasts. Furthermore, there are also people from Tyrant Cloud Academy guarding the mountain, not allowing anyone who isn't from Tyrant Cloud Academy to enter Blue Cloud City. With your strength, it is basically impossible for you to enter Blue Cloud City from Mount Tyrant Cloud. Nye Tian looked at the narrow and winding path, and a hint of longing appeared in his eyes. Shortly after, he nodded and said, I will pass through Mount Tyrant Cloud. PFFF PFFF PFFF. Qiu Shan choked. Looking at Nye Tian, he said in astonishment, Young man, are you joking? Do I look like I'm joking? Nye Tian smiled faintly. Shortly after, he asked, Uncle Qiu Shan, why are you so familiar with this narrow path? Qiu Shan's expression stiffened for a moment, and then he let out a long sigh. Qiu Ling stepped forward and said, Uncle Qiu Shan used to be a student of Tyrant Cloud Academy, and he was once the newcomer king of Tyrant Cloud Academy. However, he was injured by someone later on, and his Yuan meridians were damaged. After that, he left Tyrant Cloud Academy. Nye Tian frowned slightly. Suddenly, he placed a hand on Qiu Shan's shoulder and sent a wave of Yuan energy into Qiu Shan. Young man, you! Qiu Shan let out a cry of surprise. Shortly after, he felt a warm current surging around his body, and he immediately stopped talking. Nye Tian retracted his palm and said, Your Yuan meridians are severely blocked, and it is difficult for you to circulate your Yuan energy. Although you are at the first level of the All Creations realm, your battle prowess is only at the 5th level of the Origin Spirit realm. Have you been feeling pain in your Yuan meridians recently? How did you know? Qiu Shan's body trembled as if he was electrocuted. Regarding his Yuan meridians, other than himself, no one else knew about it. Nye Tian only needed to sense it slightly, and he was able to clearly know about it. It was really very strange. Nye Tian smiled faintly and said, Euro said that I'm a 4th-rank alchemist just now. Although she was wrong, she wasn't completely wrong. I am indeed an alchemist, but I'm a 2nd-rank alchemist. 2nd-rank alchemist. Qiu Shan and Qiu Ling were both shocked. Although a 2nd-rank alchemist wasn't as shocking as a 4th-rank alchemist. However, when Nye Tian personally admitted it, the shock was completely different. Alchemists were existences that were 1 in a million. A 1st-rank alchemist's status was much higher than that of an all-creations martial artist. Let alone a 2nd-rank alchemist, and such a young 2nd-rank alchemist at that. Sister Ling did you hear that? Euro didn't speak nonsense. Big brother Nye Tian is an alchemist. Nye Euro pouted her little mouth, feeling very proud of herself. Nye Tian nodded and said, Qiu Shan, do you believe that I have a way to cure your Yuan meridians? Chapter 55. Qiu Shan jumped off the carriage and knelt down on one knee in front of Nye Tian, saying solemnly, Mr. Nye, if you can heal my injuries, you'll be my 2nd parent. Qiu Shan is willing to serve you as your master and servant for 3 years. No, 10 years. Uncle Qiu Shan, you. Qiu Ling was also stunned for a moment, but soon after, she came back to her senses. She also jumped off the carriage and knelt in front of Nye Tian. Big brother Nye Tian, please save Uncle Qiu Shan. As long as Big brother Nye Tian is willing to save Uncle Qiu Shan, Ling is willing to do anything for Big brother Nye Tian. Qiu Shan's Yuan meridian was injured when he was 20 years old, and it had been 25 years since then. Every day in the past 25 years, he had been dreaming about his Yuan meridian being able to recover. He was very talented, and he was once the rookie king of Tyrant Cloud Academy. If it wasn't for his Yuan meridian being injured, he would have already reached the giant soul realm or even true energy realm. What pained Qiu Shan the most was that if his Yuan meridian couldn't recover, then he would never be able to take revenge. Back then, he was too outstanding and was plotted against by someone, which was why he ended up like this. He still remembered the name of his enemy, Fan Jinwu. However, Fan Jinwu was now the vice principal of Tyrant Cloud Academy, and his status was far higher than Qiu Shan's. Hearing that Nye Tian could heal his Yuan meridian, how could Qiu Shan not be excited? As for Qiu Ling she grew up under Qiu Shan's care. Although they were master and servant in name, they were like father and daughter. Qiu Ling lost her father when she was young, so this father-daughter relationship was even more sincere. If Nie Tian could really heal Qiu Shan, Qiu Ling was willing to do anything, even devote herself to him. As for whether or not Nie Tian was willing, that was another matter. Miss Ling get up quickly. Leave Qiu Shan's matter to me. Take it as repayment for letting me and Euro hitch a ride. Nie Tian quickly helped the two up and said with a smile. Repayment for hitch a ride? Qiu Shan and Qiu Ling stiffened. This repayment was too big. When Qiu Shan and Qiu Ling returned to the car, Nie Tian said, I can't treat Qiu Shan's injury right now. After a few days, I'll finish my business and come find you. Big brother Nie Tian, where are you going now? Qiu Ling asked curiously when she saw Nie Tian getting off the carriage. Nie Tian raised his head and pointed at Mount Bayun. I don't want to wait here, so I'll go from Mount Bayun. Let's meet at Tyrant Cloud Academy 3 days from now. As Nie Tian spoke, he gestured for Nie Euro to get out of the car. Mr. Nie, are you really leaving from Mount Tyrant Cloud? Qiu Shan's expression was grave as he worriedly said, Mount Tyrant Cloud is too dangerous. You should wait here with us. After knowing that Nie Tian was an alchemist, the way Qiu Shan addressed him also changed. Don't worry. A mere Tyrant Cloud Mountain is nothing to me. Nie Tian smiled faintly. Originally, Nie Tian wanted to leave Nie Euro by Qiu Ling's side. After all, Mount Tyrant Cloud was very dangerous. However, he did not know much about Qiu Ling and Qiu Shan, so the thought flashed past his mind. Big sister Ling we're leaving. Nie Euro playfully waved goodbye to Qiu Ling. Nie Tian turned around and left with Nie Euro. Suddenly, Qiu Ling jumped off the carriage and shouted, Big brother Nie Tian, let's go together. Qiu Shan was taken aback at first, but he quickly said, Yes. Mr. Nie, let Miss Ling and I accompany you. We can look after each other. All right. Nie Tian thought for a moment, then agreed. Nie Tian knew that Qiu Shan was afraid that something might happen to him. After all, Qiu Shan's injuries still depended on Nie Tian. Qiu Shan and Qiu Ling packed up and threw the carriage away. The four of them left Blue Cloud City's main road and stepped onto a narrow, winding path. Thorns grew on both sides of the path, and they were several people tall. No one could see the four of them at all. Nie Tian remained vigilant. After walking for about half an hour, a forest appeared in front of them. Mr. Nie, past this forest is Tyrant Cloud Mountain. Tyrant Cloud Mountain is Tyrant Cloud Academy's private territory, and no one is allowed to enter. We have to avoid the patrols and sneak in, Qiu Shan said, pointing to the forest in front of them. Nie Tian nodded. Then, his expression changed slightly, and he signaled for everyone to be quiet. At this moment, several young martial artists in blue slowly walked past the periphery of the forest. Qiu Shan looked at Nie Tian suspiciously and said, They are martial artists from Tyrant Cloud Academy. They are responsible for patrolling Tyrant Cloud Mountain and preventing outsiders from entering. In fact, Qiu Shan was very puzzled. Even he had not noticed the appearance of this group of martial artists, so how did Nie Tian sense them? But when he thought of Nie Tian's identity as an alchemist, he understood. Alchemists were all freakishly strong fellows with abnormal mental strength. Nie Tian walked at the very front, carefully avoiding all the patrolling martial artists from Tyrant Cloud Academy. Considering Nie Tian's current psychic power, if he fully unleashed it, he would be able to see everything within a 1,000-meter radius. Even the patrolling martial artists are at the 9th level of the Origin Spirit Realm. Tyrant Cloud Academy is indeed the #1 martial arts academy in the Kingdom of Blue Cloud. Nie Tian discovered that these patrolling martial artists were not weak. They were basically all at the 9th level of the Origin Spirit Realm, and there were even manifestation martial artists. He was a little surprised. After entering Tyrant Cloud Mountain, Tian became even more careful. At this moment, he not only had to pay attention to the patrolling martial artists from Tyrant Cloud Academy, but he also had to pay attention to the spirit beasts in the surroundings. Qiu Shan led the way at the front. At first, they did not encounter other martial artists, and there were very few spirit beasts. But as they slowly went deeper, the number of martial artists gradually increased, and the appearance of spirit beasts also increased. These martial artists were mostly youngsters in their teens and 20s, and they were basically all students of Tyrant Cloud Academy. Tian sensed a little. These students were all Origin Spirit Realm martial artists. Most of them were at the 3rd or 4th level of the Origin Spirit Realm. Occasionally, there would also be 5th or 6th level Origin Spirit Realm martial artists appearing. These martial artists formed groups of 3 to 5, hunting spirit beasts together. There were also extremely few experts who moved alone. They are all students from Tyrant Cloud Academy's Outer Institute. Today should be the day of the Outer Institute's hunting competition. We have to hurry and leave this place, Qiu Shan said as he quickened his footsteps. Tian did not wish to waste time either, bringing along Yuro to follow closely. Roar! Just as the few of them passed by a valley, a wild roar suddenly sounded out, reverberating throughout the entire valley. What a powerful aura! Qiu Shan could not help saying when he sensed the powerful aura coming from within the valley from far away. Tian frowned slightly and muttered, Rank 2 Spirit Beast, Saber-Toothed Mystic Panther. It's considered an expert among Rank 2 Spirit Beasts. Its strength is comparable to a 7th level Origin Spirit Realm martial artist. Bang! Just as Tian's voice had just faded, a muffled sound rang out. Following that, something flew out from within the valley and landed right at Tian's feet. Tian lowered his head to take a look. It was actually half a corpse at his feet. The head on the corpse was still staring with wide eyes. Clearly, the shock it received before its death was not small. Ah! Qiu Ling and Yuro cried out in shock at the same time, retreating repeatedly in fright. Quickly run! The spirit beast has gone berserk. Panicked cries came from within the valley. Several wretched figures scurried out in a panic. Chapter 56. In the valley. A little fatty and a profound black giant cat over 5 meters long were in a standoff. The little fatty looked to be 14 or 15 years old. His height was average, but his body was shockingly fat, practically the same length and width. Opposite him, a saber-toothed profound leopard bearing its sharp fangs gave a low growl. Its pitch-black eyes radiated a ruthless and ominous glint. Seeing as the people around him all ran away, the little fatty did not have the intention of running. Instead, he let loose a torrent of abuse. Bastards! Cowards! All a bunch of **king cowards! A little black cat scared you guys away? Roar! The saber-toothed profound leopard seemed to have heard the fatty's insult to it. With a low growl, its body lowered and immediately leaped into the air. Brandishing its 2 sharp steel claws, it pounced down towards the little fatty. The little fatty was abnormally valiant and actually did not dodge or evade. Clenching his fat fist, he forcefully punched out. Right at this time, a figure suddenly appeared, directly knocking away the little fatty, then dodged agilely. This figure was none other than precisely the Tian who had just rushed over. Tian's speed was very fast, but he was still scratched by the saber-toothed profound leopard's sharp claws. 3 shocking bloody wounds appeared on his right arm, bleeding non-stop. Tian did not care about the wound on his right arm. Glaring at the fatty, he roared, "Fatty, you don't want your life anymore? To dare clash head-on with the saber-toothed profound leopard, you're simply tired of living." The saber-toothed profound leopard was a powerhouse among Tier 2 spirit beasts. Its strength and speed were both very strong. If it were to clash head-on, it could even contend with 9th-level essence spirit powerhouses. The little fatty's strength was only at the 1st-level essence spirit realm. to actually want to clash head-on with the saber-toothed profound leopard, simply not knowing the difference between life and death. The little fatty looked at Nye Tian and actually chuckled and said, "I'm going to die anyway. Dying standing is better than dying lying on the ground." Nye Tian was stunned for a moment, nearly being tickled by the little fatty. This fatty's strength was lacking, but his backbone was very tough. Furthermore, what he said was right. With the saber-toothed profound leopard's strength, it was simply impossible for him to escape. Might as well go all out. "Step aside. Leave this beast to me." Nye Tian didn't want to argue with the fatty. He waved his hand, signaling him to step back. Fatty retreated to one side obediently, chuckling as he said, "I say, boss, can you do it or not? You're only at the 3rd level essence spirit realm, just a tiny bit stronger than me. Don't lose your little life if you can't save me." "One move." Nye Tian smiled faintly. Then, his face turned cold and his body emitted a sharp killing intent. The saber-toothed black leopard felt the cold killing intent and was immediately enraged. It leaped high into the air and opened its bloody mouth, as if it wanted to swallow Nye Tian whole. "Nye Tian, be careful." Behind him, Qiu Shan's voice rang out. Nye Tian smiled faintly and pointed out with a finger. An air-braking force whizzed out and directly shot into the saber-toothed profound leopard's open mouth. "Pooh!" The sound of flesh being pierced rang out. The saber-toothed profound leopard's body froze in the air and then landed heavily on the ground. Its entire head was dripping with blood. It twitched a few times on the ground and no longer moved. What powerful strength! Qiu Shan was stunned as he stared blankly at Nye Tian. He could clearly feel that Nye Tian's finger just now was something that even he couldn't possibly receive. Could it be that Mr. Nye can really beat the Nye family's head elder? Qiu Shan was quite shocked in his heart. He suddenly recalled what Nye Yuro said and actually believed a little. Qiu Shan estimated that even if Nye Tian couldn't defeat a 1st-level essence spirit realm martial artist, he could at least put up a fight with a 9th-level essence spirit realm martial artist. Big brother Nye Tian is so awesome. Nye Yuro ran to Nye Tian's side and shouted happily. Qiu Ling was stunned for a long time before she slowly reacted. "My God! It's really one move. Boss, you're simply too awesome. I, Fatty Jean, admire you." The little fatty came to his senses and laughed heartily. He pounced forward and dug out the saber-toothed panther's spirit core. After getting the spirit core, the little fatty walked to Nye Tian's side and chuckled. "Boss, I'm Jean DeBeo, a student of the Tyrant Blood Academy. What's your name, boss?" Nye Tian. Nye Tian looked at Jean DeBeo's worldly appearance and immediately felt that it was somewhat comical. Little fatty, the saber-toothed panther was killed by big brother Nye Tian. What right do you have to take the spirit core away? Qiu Ling who was at the side, couldn't stand it anymore and rebuked him angrily. Jean DeBeo turned to look at Qiu Ling. His narrowed eyes instantly widened and a stunned look shot out from his small eyes. He was actually stunned for a moment. "Damn fatty, what are you looking at? I'm talking to you. Didn't you hear me?" Qiu Ling was always an obedient girl in front of others, but in front of Jean DeBeo, she suddenly became unruly. "Ah!" Jean DeBeo suddenly came to his senses and chuckled. "This spirit core is very important to me. I have to take it and report to Master. Just treat it as if I'm buying it from Boss Nye Tian, okay?" Jean DeBeo was currently participating in the outer courtyard hunting competition of the Tyrant Blood Academy. He needed at least a rank 2 spirit core to pass, or he would face the danger of being expelled from the academy. However, with Jean DeBeo's status, he naturally wouldn't be expelled from the academy. He just didn't want to lose too much face. "Then how much will you pay for it?" Qiu Ling still didn't give up and asked fiercely. Jean DeBeo hesitated for a moment and chuckled. 10,000 gold coins. Is that enough?" "Enough." Nye Tian nodded slightly. This Jean DeBeo was really generous, too generous. A rank 1 spirit core was generally under 10 gold coins, and a rank 2 spirit core was under 100 gold coins. 10,000 gold coins could almost buy most rank 4 spirit cores. Big brother Nyetian, you saved my life. From now on, you're Jean DeBayo's big brother, and I'll be your little brother. I'll follow big brother Nyetian's every word. Jean DeBayo chuckled, as if he were very familiar with Nyetian. Mr. Nye, let's leave first. The smell of blood here is too heavy. It will attract other spirit beasts. Chioshan said. Nyetian nodded and said to Jean DeBayo, Fatty, we are going to leave Tyrant Cloud Mountain and enter Blue Cloud City from Tyrant Cloud Academy. Is that okay? No problem. Leave it to me. Jean DeBayo patted his chest and said. When Nyetian and the others walked out of the valley, they ran into 4 or 5 cultivators running back with their faces covered in dirt. They were the people who had escaped from the valley earlier. When these people saw Jean DeBayo, they all nodded their heads and bowed to him. Young Master Jean, it's great that you're fine. Yeah. It was really too dangerous just now. Luckily I ran fast. Young Master Jean survived a calamity. You're bound to have a flood of good fortune in the future. The few people had fawning smiles on their faces as they said one sentence after another. Jean DeBayo's fat face trembled as he roared angrily, You guys still fucking dare to come back? All of you are King cowards. This young master raised you guys in vain. Normally, all of you jump up and down like monkeys. At the critical moment, all of you wilt. Each and every one of you runs even faster than Lord Rabbit. All King scram for this young master. This young master doesn't want to see you guys again. The few people were scolded until their faces turned ashen. But no one dared to rebuke. These people were also Tyrant Cloud Academy students. Furthermore, their strengths were all at the 4th level Origin Spirit Realm, far more powerful than Jean DeBayo. The reason why they were so apprehensive of Jean DeBayo was that the latter's identity was extraordinary. Jean DeBayo's identity was not simple at all. He was the only son of the capital's richest man. Chapter 57. What are you waiting for? Cram. Jean DeBayo roared coldly. After being scolded by Jean DeBayo, they knew they were in the wrong. Moreover, Jean DeBayo was not someone they could afford to offend, so they all ran away without hesitation. Fatty, are these your men? Nyetian smiled faintly. He was a little interested in Jean DeBayo's identity. Jean DeBayo chuckled. They're all ungrateful fools. They eat my spirit pills and crystals every day and run away faster than Uncle Rabbit at critical moment. From today onwards, I won't give them even half a spirit pill. Nyetian nodded slightly. He could roughly guess Jean DeBayo's identity. He must be from a rich family. In fact, it could be seen from Jean DeBayo's 10,000 gold coins for the spirit core of the saber-toothed panther that he was not from a rich family. Nyetian's guess was very accurate. Jean DeBayo was the only son of the richest man in the Imperial City. Boss, let's go. I'll hand over the spirit core to my teacher first, then I'll take you to Blue Cloud City. I'll hold a welcoming dinner for you at the first grade house tonight. Jean DeBayo chuckled as he made the arrangements. Nyetian nodded. He did not object. He had a good impression of Jean DeBayo. From the way he fought the saber-toothed panther, he could tell that this was a fatty with backbone. Since Nyetian did not object, Chioshan did not object either. The group followed Jean DeBayo toward the exit of Mount Tyrant Cloud. About half an hour later, Nyetian and the others appeared at the exit of Mount Tyrant Cloud. There was an empty space near the exit. A middle-aged martial artist stood there. Many students walked over to him and handed over their spirit cores. Boss, wait for me. I'll be back after I hand over the spirit cores. Jean DeBayo greeted them and ran over excitedly. Nyetian, Chioshan, and the others waited at the side. Nyetian began to observe the surroundings. Mount Tyrant Cloud was not big. There was an iron fence at the border with Tyrant Cloud Academy. Every exit was guarded by martial artists to prevent spirit beasts from charging into the academy. Qiu Ling looked at Tyrant Cloud Academy not far away in surprise. She had long been fantasizing about it. Qiu Shan's expression was grave. He was previously a student of Tyrant Cloud Academy, and now that he returned here, his emotions were extremely complicated. Stinking brat, it's you. Right at this moment, a sharp and furious howl resounded abruptly from nearby. Subconsciously, Nie Tian turned around and looked towards the source of the sound. It's actually this guy. Nie Tian smiled playfully. This was really a small world for enemies. The person who appeared in front of him was actually Qin Yulong. 5 days ago, Nie Tian had crippled Qin Yulong's second brother. He did not expect to encounter the latter again so soon. Brat, how dare you? How dare you come to Blue Cloud City and show up in Tyrant Cloud Academy? Don't even think of leaving here alive today. Qin Yulong walked over quickly. His complexion was good, but his temperament had changed a lot. He had become more sinister and had a feminine air to him. Behind Qin Yulong there were more than 10 young martial artists. The person in the lead was a handsome young man in his 20s. His appearance was somewhat similar to Qin Yulong's. Third young Master Qin. Nie Tian smiled faintly and said, Blue Cloud City and Tyrant Cloud Academy are not your home. Why wouldn't I dare to show up? As for you, you look like you're neither a man nor a woman. Don't come out and disgust people. You dog, you. Qin Yulong's pretty face turned red, and he could not even speak. The reason why he looked like he was neither a man nor a woman was all thanks to Nie Tian. Third brother, who is this person? At this time, more than 10 martial artists walked over, and the one in the lead asked. He was Qin Yulong's second brother, Qin Yuhu. Qin Yuhu was only 20 years old, but he was already at the first level of all creations. Moreover, he was an inner court student of Tyrant Cloud Academy. Tyrant Cloud Academy was divided into outer court students, inner court students, and elite students. Generally speaking, only those whose strength reached the all creations realm could become inner court students. Only those whose strength reached the 5th level of all creations could become elite student. Small trash like Jean de Bayo, who was only at the 1st level of origin spirit, was an outer court student. Second brother, he is the person who injured me 5 days ago. Second brother, it's all thanks to him that I became like this. You must avenge me. I want him dead, I want him to die right now. Qin Yulong screamed shrilly, looking exactly like a woman throwing a tantrum. After being turned into a eunuch by Nie Tian, Qin Yulong had long become the laughingstock of Blue Cloud City. Even if he wanted to hide it, he could not hide the increasingly obvious feminine temperament. Qin Yulong wished he could cut Nie Tian into 1,000 pieces and grind his bones into ashes. Third brother, don't speak anymore. Leave the rest to me. Qin Yuhu waved his hand. He could not stand Qin Yulong's shrewish temperament either. Qin Yuhu took a step forward and sized up Nie Tian, his eyes revealing a hint of disdain as he said in a cold voice, I'm very curious. How did a 3rd-level origin spirit trash like you manage to kill Qin San-er and even escape from Master Gu's hands? Interesting. Nie Tian was similarly cold as he said, Curiosity kills the cat. I'm afraid that you'll lose your little life before you figure out what's going on. Nie Tian had long sensed that Qin Yuhu had the strength of the 1st level of all creations. His essence spirit aptitude was not bad, and his battle prowess was very strong. At least, he was much stronger than Nie Wenyuan. Qiushan also sensed Qin Yuhu's strength and secretly broke into a cold sweat. He did not know what grudges there were between Qin Yuhu and Nie Tian, but looking at the other party's aura, it was very hard for things to be amicable. Qin Yuhu could not help but be stunned. He did not think that Nie Tian would be so arrogant. The way he saw it, a 3rd-level origin spirit small fry, as long as he let out a casual snort, the latter should have the awareness to kneel down and beg for mercy. Big brother who, You don't need to make a move to deal with a small fry like this. This little brother can take care of him, a martial artist beside Qin Yu who said fawningly before he even opened his mouth. That's right. A third-level origin spirit ant, there's no need for Big Brother Hu to make a move personally, the others chimed in. These martial artists were mostly at the 7th level of origin spirit and above, completely disregarding Yetian. To be able to perform in front of the Qin brothers Yu Hu and Qin Yulong, how could they miss such a good opportunity? All right, Lu Xiaofeng. This young master will give you a chance to perform. Kill him for me, Qin Yu Hu snickered, saying without the slightest scruple. He knew that Nye Tian was not someone from Tyrant Cloud Academy, and right now, they were in Tyrant Cloud Academy's territory. Even if Nye Tian died here, no one would dare to question it. Many thanks, Big Brother Hu. That martial artist called Lu Xiaofeng chuckled, as if he picked up a great bargain. Lu Xiaofeng took a step out. His gaze when looking at Nye Tian was filled with extreme contempt. He was at the 8th level origin spirit realm, and was very confident. As long as he made a casual move, he could knock Nye Tian down to the ground, or even kill him in one blow. Stinking brat, die! Lu Xiaofeng gave a low roar. His 5 fingers formed a claw and slashed out brazenly. An azure sharp claw immediately appeared in the air, attacking towards Nye Tian's neck. Very clearly, Lu Xiaofeng wanted to kill him in one blow, to perform well in front of Qin Yu Hu. But he thought wrong. Furthermore, it was completely and utterly wrong. Chapter 58. Facing Lu Xiaofeng's fatal blow, Qiushan and the rest had their hearts in their throat. Reckless. Nye Tianling looked at Lu Xiaofeng coldly. After shaking his head slightly, he did not dodge or evade, punching out with a bizarre punch. My hand! The next instant, Lu Xiaofeng's tragic cry like a pig being butchered rang out. The bones of his entire fist were all broken, his flesh a bloody mess. Nye Tian only casually punched out, not even using any martial technique, only slightly using the power of stars. The current Nye Tian had awakened the power of 12 stars in his body. The strength in his hands exceeded 30,000 jin. A casual punch could match a level 9 essence spirit expert. With Nye Tian's strength, he could completely take Lu Xiaofeng's life with one punch. But he felt that there was no need for that. Because in his eyes, Lu Xiaofeng was no different from an ant. Towards this kind of ant that could be squashed to death casually, so what if he spared his life? Lu Xiaofeng hugged his injured arm and retreated subconsciously. His gaze when looking at Nye Tian was filled with deep fear. He was unable to imagine how a mere level 3 essence spirit martial artist could instantly erupt with such terrifying power. Trash! Qin Yu Hu glared at Lu Xiaofeng and reprimanded coldly. At this time, Qin Yu Hu started to take Nye Tian seriously. An opponent who could casually defeat an level 8 essence spirit martial artist was worthy of his attention. At this time, the surrounding people crowded over, all with the attitude of waiting to watch a good show. Boss, what happened? Jean de Bao also returned. Seeing the abnormal expressions of Qin Yu Hu and the rest, he asked in surprise. Nothing much, just a little personal grudge. Nye Tian smiled faintly. Jean de Bao's identity was special and had some power in Tyrant Cloud Academy. With him around, Nye Tian was not afraid of things blowing up. Seeing Jean de Bao walk over, Qin Yu Hu's face twitched, and he said in a cold voice, "No wonder you're so arrogant. So, you're Fatty Jin's man." Everyone in Blue Cloud City knew that the Qin and Jin families were sworn enemies. Jean de Bao and Qin Yu Hu and Qin Yulong also disliked each other and often had conflicts in the academy. Jean de Bao snickered and said, "Qin Yu Hu, you're wrong this time. Boss Nye Tian isn't my man. On the contrary, I'm Boss Nye Tian's man." Nye Tian frowned slightly. Why did Jean de Bao's words sound so awkward? Qin Yu Hu was stunned for a moment. His cold eyes looked at Nye Tian and he laughed evilly. To be able to make young Master Jean willingly become a lackey, It looks like your background isn't small. Jean de Bao could be considered as the #1 figure in Tyrant Cloud Academy. Even though his personal strength was very weak, his family's influence was very strong. Therefore, there was no lack of underlings around him. It was strange that he would take the initiative to be someone else's lackey. Second brother, this kid doesn't have any background. He's just a poor country bumpkin who can't even afford a carriage. Fatty Jean is definitely bluffing. Qin Yulong thought that Qin Yuhu was afraid and thought he was smart enough to remind him. Shut up. Qin Yuhu coldly rebuked. You still have the cheek to say that? Is it very glorious to be castrated by a country bumpkin? Qin Yulong shrunk his head and didn't dare to say anything else. Jean de Bao laughed and mocked. I was wondering why old 3 Qin has changed these few days. He doesn't go and harass his seniors and juniors anymore. Moreover, he walks with a coquettish air and speaks like a eunuch. So he really has become a castrated goods. Haha, the heavens really have eyes. Jean de Bao's words caused everyone to roar with laughter. Qin Yulong's reputation in Tyrant Cloud Academy was extremely bad. He relied on his family's influence to flirt all day and especially bully poor students. Now that he was castrated, it was unknown how many good girls were spared from his evil claws. Fatty Jean, you're courting death. Qin Yuhu's face sank as he bellowed. Qin Yulong had already become the laughingstock of Tyrant Cloud Academy. But no matter what, he was still a member of the Qin clan. Qin Yuhu naturally had to protect him. Qin Yuhu's body trembled slightly and he actually attacked directly. A dark golden sword light attacked Jean de Bao. Qin Yuhu didn't want to take Jean de Bao's life with this sword. No matter how arrogant he was, he also didn't dare to kill Jean de Bao in front of so many people. After all, the latter's status was there for all to see. He just wanted to shock and awe, lest Jean de Bao blabber without restraint and speak wantonly. In the moment of crisis, Nie Tian reacted extremely quickly. He slapped out with a palm and blocked the sword light in the air. Injuring my lackey in front of me, do you treat me as if I don't exist? Nie Tianling said calmly. Since Jean de Bao admitted that he was Nie Tian's lackey, then Nie Tian would have to protect him. Although his words were domineering, Nie Tian was very cautious in his heart. He had already seen through Qin Yuhu's move just now that the latter's primordial spirit was an extremely rare sword spirit. A martial artist's primordial spirit was mainly divided into 3 major categories: beast spirit, wood spirit, and weapon spirit. Beast spirit was biased towards attack, and could bring a great increase to a martial artist's strength. Wood spirit was biased towards control, and when combined with other martial artists, it could better reflect the power of a wood spirit. Weapon spirit was the rarest of the 3 major categories of primordial spirit. Its attack power was the strongest, and it was the most tyrannical existence among martial artists of the same level. Qin Yuhu's primordial spirit was the sword spirit among weapon spirits. The sword was the king of all weapons, so sword spirits were even more terrifying than other weapon spirits. What made Nie Tian even more fearful was that Qin Yuhu's sword spirit seemed to carry a slight mutation, and the sword light appeared even sharper. Nie Tian estimated that although Qin Yuhu's strength was only at the first level of the Wanxiang Adept realm, his true battle prowess was definitely comparable to a 3rd level of the Wanxiang Adept realm martial artist. Arrogant! Qin Yuhu looked at Nie Tian and snorted coldly, roaring, a mere 3rd level origin spirit martial artist. Even if the strength in your hand is shocking, it's only 30,000 gene of force. This young master is a Wanxiang martial artist, and my primordial spirit is the Tiger Fang blazing sword, the strongest primordial spirit among weapon spirits. In front of me, you're nothing but an ant. I only need 1 sword to kill you. Finishing, Qin Yuhu suddenly took a step forward, his aura powerful. Nie Tian was not a member of Tyrant Cloud Academy, and he did not have any background. This made Qin Yuhu have no qualms. The origin energy in Qin Yuhu's body surged, and behind him, a huge dark golden sword appeared. The origin energy surged and actually condensed into a solid form, emitting a heart-palpitating aura. The primordial spirit of the Tiger Fang blazing sword contained the might of an overlord, fierce and domineering. The surrounding people felt the might of the Tiger Fang blazing sword, and the legs of many people trembled, almost kneeling on the ground. Qiushan subconsciously protected Qiu Ling and Yeyuro, looking at Nie Tian with great worry. He admitted that Nie Tian's battle prowess was shocking, and he had surprised him many times. But this time was different. Qin Yuhu's aura was really too strong. Nie Tian frowned, his expression solemn. He had guessed correctly. Qin Yuhu's primordial spirit was a huge sword that contained a strong killing intent, the Tiger Fang blazing sword. And there was the aura of some kind of spirit beast on the Tiger Fang blazing sword. It should be caused by a slight mutation, making the power of the Tiger Fang blazing sword even more shocking. The Tiger Fang blazing sword was originally just a 4th-tier primordial spirit, but the slight mutation made the Tiger Fang blazing sword comparable to a 5th-tier primordial spirit. Die! Qin Yuhu did not give Nie Tian the chance to think. A streak of primordial spirit energy directly spewed out from the Tiger Fang blazing sword, turning into a dark golden sword light, flying towards Nie Tian's glabella at extreme speed. Just at the instant the sword light was released, a strong sense of threat surged in Nie Tian's heart. Chapter 59. Qin Yuhu's sword gleam was fast, accurate, and ruthless. It was hard to defend against and dodge. Few martial artists of the same level as him could escape unscathed. Just as the sword gleam was about to hit his forehead, Nie Tian made a strange turn and shifted his upper body half a meter, perfectly avoiding the fatal sword gleam. Bam! The dark golden sword gleam missed Nie Tian and whistled out, carrying with it the power of heaven and earth. It actually cut a huge boulder 100 meters away. Nie Tian was secretly shocked when he saw this. Fortunately, he reacted in time. Otherwise, if he was hit by the sword gleam, he would be severely injured even if he didn't die. The power of a sword spirit was truly terrifying. The Nie family's first elder, Nie Wenyuan, and Qin Yuhu were both first-level all-manifestation martial artists, but the former's combat ability was on a completely different level. This was the frightening part of a sword spirit. Martial artists of the same level rarely had a worthy opponent. Everyone looked at the huge boulder that was cut open by the sword gleam, a chill surging in their hearts. Senior brother Qin Yuhu is indeed an inner institute student. He can cut open a huge boulder 100 meters away with a casual swing of his sword. How terrifying! That's right. The origin spirit of an all-manifestation martial artist has already condensed into a physical form. Senior brother Qin Yuhu's origin spirit is a terrifying sword spirit. Its power is too shocking. This kid is quite strange. He can actually dodge senior brother Qin Yuhu's fatal strike at such a close distance. What the hell? So what if he dodged it? Senior brother Qin Yuhu's next strike will definitely take his life. The crowd discussed and evaluated Qin Yuhu and Nie Tian's performance. Mr. Nie, are you alright? Qiushan wiped the cold sweat off his forehead, his face full of shock. He was simply too shocked, not by Qin Yuhu's strength, but by Nie Tian's. Nie Tian was only at the 3rd level of origin spirit. How could he dodge Qin Yuhu's direct attack? This was beyond Qiushan's martial knowledge. Qiushan, you guys step back, Nie Tianling said calmly. Qin Yuhu's strength was above his expectations. He had to take this opponent seriously. Damn it, where did Fatty go? Suddenly, Qiu Ling turned around and couldn't see Jean Debeo. She thought he had run away. She stomped her feet and scolded, "Coward! Coward!" Nie Tian frowned slightly. He knew that Jean Debeo was a hot-blooded person and was definitely not a coward. Something must have happened for him to leave now. At the same time, Nie Tian noticed that in the crowd, a middle-aged martial artist was seriously watching the battle. The reason why he had noticed this middle-aged cultivator was because the latter's strength had actually reached the shocking 9th level of the all-creation realm. He was at the 9th level of the Wanxiang realm, only one step away from the giant spirit realm. This kind of strength was definitely top-notch in the Empire of Blue Cloud. Nie Tian guessed that this person was definitely a teacher from Tyrant Cloud Academy. His guess was right. The middle-aged martial artist was called Fan Jinji, and he was the teacher from Tyrant Cloud Academy who had collected the spirit cores earlier. Fan Jinji watched the battle with interest. Clearly, he had no intention of stopping the fight. Qin Yuhu clearly noticed Fan Jinji's existence. Looking at Nie Tian, he said with a sinister smile, "Stinking brat, I have to admit that your strength has exceeded my expectations. Merely 3rd level origin spirit strength. Not only is your strength astonishing, your speed is also ridiculously fast. If you had the same strength as me, I definitely wouldn't be your match. But now you must die." The more shocking the strength that Nie Tian displayed, the more it strengthened Qin Yuhu's murderous intent. Qin Yuhu had a faint feeling in his heart that if he did not kill Nie Tian today, there would definitely be no end of trouble in the future. "Die for me." Qin Yuhu gave a cold cry. The Tiger Fang blazing sword behind him spun in the air and directly landed in his hand. He could not care about anything anymore and attacked with full power. He must kill Nie Tian. Overlord Slaying Moon. A sword stabbed out. Sword shadows flashed, the aura shocking. A sword light several meters long rumbled towards Nie Tian. Nie Tian was slightly startled. Sword Absolute Heaven Slaying Sword appeared in his hand. He dodged to the best of his ability while carefully blocking, but that vast aura still forced him back several meters. Although Nie Tian avoided the frontal force of the sword light, the aura dissipated from the sword light still caused damage to him, causing him to spit out a mouthful of fresh blood. The difference in strength between Nie Tian and Qin Yuhu was too great. It was practically a major cultivation realm. This kind of difference was very hard to make up for with talent and martial technique. The most crucial thing was that Nie Tian's primordial spirit was the Primal Chaos Original Coffin and Astral Soul Original Cannon. He practically did not have any direct combat ability. Just this bit of strength? Qin Yuhu smiled cold. The killing intent from his entire body almost condensed into a solid form, making one feel suffocated. Overlord trampling the heavens. Qin Yuhu's killing intent was set. With a furious roar, he chopped down with his sword. The Tiger Fang blazing sword chopped down from midair. A terrifying sword wave chopped down ferociously. The surrounding air seemed to be torn apart by an invisible force. The terrifying and tyrannical dark golden sword light descended tyrannically towards the top of Nie Tian's head. War God Heavenly Slash! Nie Tian frowned. His body slightly leaned to the side. At the same time, he took a step forward and stabbed his sword towards Qin Yuhu's armpit. Boom! The air whistled as the sword Absolute Heaven Slash released a white sword light that shot out like lightning. Bang! Bang! Two muffled sounds rang out. Nie Tian and Qin Yuhu were hit at the same time. Nie Tian cleverly avoided the sword light head-on. However, his shoulder was struck by the sword light, leaving behind a horrifying wound. Blood gushed out like a fountain. As for Qin Yuhu, he was stabbed under his armpit. Fresh blood dyed his entire arm red. At this moment, all the surrounding spectators were stunned. They were shocked by the strength of a sword spirit martial artist. However, they were even more shocked by how terrifying Nie Tian was. The shock that Nie Tian gave them was too great, especially Qiu Shan. He simply did not know how to evaluate Nie Tian. He was deeply aware of how terrifying Qin Yuhu was. If he were to fight with the latter now, he would definitely not be able to withstand even one move. Qin Yuhu raised his injured arm. His face was so gloomy that it seemed as though blood was dripping from it. He coldly said, "You received 2 of my sword strikes and still managed to injure me. You should be very proud of yourself. It's a pity that you still have to die. I will let you understand that the gap between us is insurmountable." As he finished speaking, his killing intent became even stronger. The Tiger Fang's sword released an even stronger aura. "You really talk a lot of nonsense." Nie Tian stood still and steadied his body as he replied coldly. At this moment, Nie Tian's injuries were not light. Fortunately, he had the support of his 10th Yuan meridian. Otherwise, he would definitely not be able to withstand Qin Yuhu's sword attack. Nie Tian frowned slightly. He was considering whether to use his star soul. He had long noticed that Fan Jinji, who was at the side, was looking at him with a malicious gaze. Fan Jinji was the reason why Nie Tian did not use his star soul. Nie Tian was worried that once he used his star soul, Fan Jinji would personally attack. Reckless. Qin Yuhu's expression was malevolent as he laughed coldly. "Next, let's see if you can receive this move. Overlord's death blow." As his voice fell, he raised his hand. The Tiger Fang's sword spun in the air and actually transformed into a dark golden image of a ferocious tiger. Nie Tian's gaze was as cold as iron. He knew that if he could not receive this move, everything would be over. Qin Yuhu's Tiger Fang sword was too terrifying. Its battle prowess was comparable to a third-level Wanxiang martial artist. Nie Tian glanced at Fan Jinji and roared in his heart, "I can't care too much anymore. I have to use my star soul." Qin Yuhu had already gone mad. He swore not to rest until he killed Nie Tian. Chapter 60. Looking at Qin Yuhu's ferocious expression, Nie Tian could not help but smile bitterly. He had never thought that he, the war god of the heaven realm, would be forced into such a corner by a manifestation cultivator. Right now, Nie Tian had two choices. He could either use his star souls or the 3 seals of the war god. Nie Tian did not want to cause too much of a commotion. After careful consideration, he decided to use his star souls. On the chaotic original coffin, there were 2 star souls: Blood Feather Heavenly Roar and 8 Remotes Dragon Roar. The Blood Feather Heavenly Roar was a pair of black wings that exuded an extreme baleful aura. The 8 Remotes Dragon Roar was a lifelike dragon head that exuded an extremely domineering aura. Glancing at the ferocious tiger image above Qin Yuhu's head, Nie Tian decided to use the 8 Remotes Dragon Roar. Back when he was inscribing the 8 Remotes Dragon Roar, he had spent a total of 10 days. After he succeeded, his mental energy was almost exhausted. Because Nie Tian had spent so much time inscribing the star souls, his strength had risen so slowly that he was only at the 3rd level of the origin spirit realm. 8 Remotes Dragon Roar, it's time for you to prove your worth. Nie Tian did not panic as his lips curled into a faint smile. You're courting death. Seeing that Nie Tian could still smile at this time, Qin Yuhu instantly felt humiliated. Enraged, he swung the Tiger Fang sword in his hand. The Overlord's killing blow. The ferocious tiger image formed from the sword light was like a ferocious tiger descending the mountain, baring its teeth as it pressed towards Nie Tian with an overwhelming force. The surrounding crowd retreated simultaneously. Just this aura alone was not something they could withstand. Die! Qin Yuhu roared, the origin energy in his body surging. Waves of aura burst forth, becoming stronger and more terrifying. The Overlord's killing blow came crashing down like a huge wave, bringing with it a tremendous force as it crashed down. Big Brother Nie Tian. Nie Yuro's petite face was filled with terror as she shouted. Qiu Shan and Qiu Ling Er's hearts were in their throats, not even blinking. At this critical moment, a strange smile suddenly appeared at the corner of Nie Tian's mouth. As the 10 Yuan meridians in his body revolved, the 8 desolate dragon roar astral soul above the primal chaos original coffin sensed something. The tadpole-like runes surged and rapidly transformed into a huge force that surged into Nie Tian's Dantian. 8 Desolation's dragon roar, come out! At the crucial moment, Nie Tian uttered a furious roar. A strange scene took place. Nie Tian's entire body surged with terrifying essence energy, condensing into a huge phantom image of a dragon's head outside his body. The illusory dragon head grew larger and larger. In the blink of an eye, it was already 5 to 6 meters long, and it tightly wrapped around Nie Tian. Bang! In the next moment, the tyrant's ultimate kill and the roar of the 8 directions dragon collided. Sparks flew everywhere and it was extremely violent. Waves of terrifying aura pressed down, causing terrifying cracks to appear on the ground. Streaks of deep scars penetrated deep into the ground. It was horrifying. More than a dozen deep pits appeared on the ground within a radius of dozens of meters. However, the tyrant's ultimate kill was unable to break through the phantom image of the 8 desolations dragon roar. Nie Tian was within the phantom image of the dragon's head. Although the frontal force of the tyrant's ultimate kill was completely blocked by the phantom image of the dragon's head, the terrifying aura carried by the sword light also caused him to suffer considerable injuries. Qin Yuhu's Tiger Fang blazing sword primordial spirit was too terrifying. The power of the tyrant's ultimate kill was even more terrifying. If he did not have the 8 desolations dragon roar astral soul, Nie Tian would be heavily injured even if he did not die if he was struck by any one of the sword light beams. Qin Yuhu's Tiger Fang blazing sword primordial spirit clearly had a slight change. It seemed to carry a kind of ferocious tiger energy, like the fusion of a sword spirit and a ferocious tiger primordial spirit. It was just that the sword spirit was the dominant one. How is this possible? Who the hell are you? Qin Yuhu saw the phantom image of a dragon's head suddenly surge out from Nie Tian's body, his essence energy surging, virtually condensing into a solid form. He was instantly stunned on the spot. At this moment, he believed that Nie Tian at least had 9th level origin spirit strength, and the phantom image of a dragon's head revolving around him was Nie Tian's primordial spirit. The divine dragon primordial spirit looked like a beast spirit. Furthermore, it seemed to be even more tyrannical than Qin Yuhu's Tiger Fang blazing sword. How could Qin Yuhu not be shocked? Not just Qin Yuhu was shocked. Everyone present had a dumbfounded look on their faces. Nie Tian's performance at this very moment completely subverted everyone's understanding of the martial Tao. Who I am, you're not fit to know yet. Right at this time, Nie Tian suddenly moved. Roar! The next instant, the phantom image of a dragon's head suddenly gave off a deep dragon roar. It was akin to the 9 heavens' thunder reverberating in everyone's hearts. Boom! A loud bang. The 8 desolations dragon roar's colossal aura instantly erupted. Under the watch of countless pairs of eyes, the phantom image of a dragon's head was like a primordial wild beast, breaking out of the abyss and assaulting Qin Yuhu. The aura of the 8 desolations dragon roar was incomparably powerful. If it hit Qin Yuhu head-on, he would die for sure. Following that, the 8 desolations dragon roar erupted with an earth-shattering divine might. Before the tip of the blade reached, Qin Yuhu's entire body's aura had already dissipated. In just a short moment, Qin Yuhu's shocked face was instantly replaced by fear. Under the tyrannical aura of the 8 desolations dragon roar, Qin Yuhu's clothes instantly turned into flying ash. On his skin, cracks appeared inch by inch. Streaks of blood covered his entire body. Just at this moment, a strange thing happened. Pung! Qin Yuhu had already lost all hope. However, a soaring air force suddenly appeared and directly struck him, causing him to fly backward. With a bang, he crashed into a huge rock. The huge rock shattered into pieces. After he landed, he spat out a mouthful of blood. Qin Yuhu was pushed away by an inexplicable force. At the most critical moment, he dodged the fatal blow of the 8 desolations dragon roar. You still made a move. Nie Tian indifferently turned around and looked cold at Fan Jinji. The person who saved Qin Yuhu was none other than Tyrant Cloud Academy's teacher, Fan Jinji. Fan Jinji had been watching the battle from the side for a long time. Originally, he did not have the intention to make a move. But he did not expect that Nie Tion's strength was actually so terrifying. Who are you? How dare you cause trouble in Tyrant Cloud Academy? Fan Jinji glanced at Nie Tion and said cold. Teacher Fan. Qin Yu, who struggled to get up. Although he was severely injured, he was still alive. He called out weakly. Step down first. Leave this person to me. Fan Jinji said indifferently. Yes. Qin Yu replied and retreated to the side with the help of several martial artists. Just as Fan Jinji walked out, Qiu Shan's expression suddenly stiffened. Then, his eyes turned bloodshot and his body trembled uncontrollably. Fan Jinji, it's you. Qiu Shan suddenly took a step forward and said in a deep voice. He was too familiar with the Fan Jinji in front of him. He could recognize him even if he turned into ashes. 25 years ago, Qiu Shan's Yuan Meridian was injured. Fan Jinwu was the mastermind and Fan Jinji was the accomplice. Fan Jinwu and Fan Jinji were blood-related brothers. Back then, Qiu Shan was the newcomer king of Tyrant Cloud Academy, the #1 person in the outer yard. Fan Jinwu and Fan Jinji were his lackeys. Later on, these two lackeys betrayed him and framed Qiu Shan, causing him to become a person whose Yuan Meridian was completely destroyed. In the end, he could only leave Tyrant Cloud Academy. Now, human affairs were changing and the world was changing. Fan Jinwu was already the vice dean of Tyrant Cloud Academy. Fan Jinji had also become a teacher of Tyrant Cloud Academy. Qiu Shan had become a lonely and nameless person. Chapter 61. Fan Jinji laughed very loudly, very arrogant, and very unscrupulous. It was as if he only had eyes for Qiu Shan and no one else around him existed. Qiu Shan, who was once the newcomer king of Tyrant Cloud Academy, had now been reduced to a piece of trash. Just thinking about it made Fan Jinji excited. Trash expelled by the academy. The ear-piercing sounds were like poisonous needles stabbing into Qiu Shan's heart one by one. He gritted his teeth as his heart ached. Fan Jinji was right. Qiu Shan, whose Yuan Meridians were crippled, was indeed no different from trash. Fan Jinji, said Qiu Shan coldly, if it weren't for you and your traitorous brother, how could I, Qiu Shan, end up like this? Back then, Qiu Shan's talent was heaven-defying, and he was known as the #1 genius of Tyrant Cloud Academy. If it hadn't been for that accident, Qiu Shan would have long since become the pinnacle figure of the kingdom of Blue Cloud. Perhaps he would have left the kingdom of Blue Cloud long ago and gone to a wider world. Qiu Shan, are you blaming me? Fan Jinji laughed cold and said mockingly, it's been 25 years, and your power is still at the first tier of all creations. Even a little brother like me, who you looked down on back then, is already at the 9th tier of the all-creation realm. Do you still have the right to blame me? Qualifications? Qiu Shan laughed bitterly, as if he had lost all his faith in an instant. Qiu Shan knew very well that this was a world where the strong were revered. Whoever had the bigger fist would have the higher right to speak. Reason is a bitch, always on the side of the bigger fist. Today, Qiu Shan was the weak one, the one being bullied and humiliated. What right did he have to blame Fan Jinji? Fan Jinji saw Qiu Shan's dazed expression and felt even more proud of himself. Qiu Shan, he said, recognize your own status. What happened back then was all your own doing. Who asked you to be too sharp and provoke someone you shouldn't provoke? The tallest tree in the forest will be destroyed by the wind. You shouldn't be ignorant of this. Also, you should rejoice. Of course, that person only expelled you from the academy and didn't kill you. But right now, living is a kind of torture for you. If you had died back then, I wouldn't have been able to enjoy your current miserable state. Isn't it? Qiu Shan's face was full of pain. His pupils slowly shrank, and he finally lowered his head. Uncle Qiu Shan. Qiu Ling could tell that Fan Jinji was Qiu Shan's enemy, but she did not expect to meet him here. Nie Tion's eyebrows furrowed slightly. He had basically understood everything. He stepped forward and gestured for Qiu Ling and Qiu Shan to stand down. Suddenly, Qiu Shan raised his head, looked at Fan Jinji, and asked, "Tell me, who was the person who instigated all of you behind the scenes?" Fan Jinji was taken aback for a moment before he let out a strange laugh. "Do you really want to know? Unfortunately, you don't deserve to know. If he wanted to know the answer, he had to find it himself. But I advise you to know your place and be a good-for-nothing. That person is definitely not someone you can afford to provoke." "I understand." Qiu Shan seemed to have lost his soul. His eyes instantly became empty. Fan Jinji didn't want to waste any more time on Qiu Shan, so he turned his attention to Nie Tian. In his eyes, Nie Tian was very similar to Qiu Shan in the past. They were both young geniuses who showed off their abilities. Moreover, Nie Tian seemed to be even more arrogant than Qiu Shan. He hadn't even entered Tyrant Cloud Academy, but he had already started fighting with Qin Yuhu. Fan Jinji only had 6 words for people like Nie Tian: showing off your abilities, courting death. Now was the recruitment period for Tyrant Cloud Academy, so Fan Jinji naturally thought that Nie Tian was also here to participate in the recruitment. "Stinking brat, you caused trouble in Tyrant Cloud Academy. As a teacher, it is my duty to maintain the academy's stability. You injured Qin Yuhu, so leave your life here today." Fan Jinji's face was sinister, and his entire body emitted a sharp killing intent. He didn't want to talk nonsense with Nie Tian. Anyway, they were in Tyrant Cloud Academy. Even if he killed Nie Tian, it would be in vain. Nie Tian frowned. Fan Jinji's ruthlessness and shamelessness were beyond his expectations. Fan Jinji was a 9th-tier all-manifestation martial artist, and his strength was far beyond Qin Yuhu's. If he fought with Fan Jinji, even if Nie Tian used his Star Souls, it would be difficult for him to block a single move from Fan Jinji. "Don't tell me I have to use the 3 seals of the War God again?" Nie Tian calculated in his heart. If Fan Jinji wanted to kill him, he would have to use the 3 seals of the War God. "Brat, die." Fan Jinji didn't give Nie Tian a chance to think. He shouted in a deep voice and struck out with his palm. The distance between Nie Tian and Fan Jinji was less than 5 meters. Under such circumstances, even if he used the soaring swan steps, it would be difficult for him to dodge. At this critical moment, a strange change suddenly occurred. "Stop!" A loud shout rang out, and soon after, a sharp gust of wind attacked. Bang! The sharp gust of wind blocked Fan Jinji's attack just in time. Immediately after, a white-robed figure appeared, blocking in front of Nie Tian. Nie Tian raised his head and saw a middle-aged man in his 30s or 40s. He was tall and wore white robes that were spotless, giving off a scholarly and aloof feeling. "Boss, are you all right?" Immediately after, Jean de Bao's figure appeared. Looking at Jean de Bao, Nie Tian immediately understood that the white-robed martial artist in front of him was called over by the latter. Jean de Bao had left the moment Nie Tian and Qin Yuhu started fighting. He had gone to call for reinforcements. Jean de Bao was very smart. He knew that the situation would be difficult to resolve, so he went to call for reinforcements in advance. "I'm fine." Nie Tian immediately let out a sigh of relief. Although the 3 seals of the War God was enough for Nie Tian to face Fan Jinji head-on, Nie Tian didn't want to show off too much. The 3 seals of the War God was his final trump card. He wouldn't use it if he could. Jean de Bao suddenly saw Qin Yuhu covered in blood and being supported by someone. He couldn't help but be surprised. "Boss, you were the one who injured Qin Yuhu?" "I was just lucky." Nie Tian smiled faintly. F***ck, that's too abnormal. Second brother Qin is an all-creation martial artist. Jean de Bao's mouth opened wide in an exaggerated manner. One had to know that Qin Yuhu was an inner-court student of Tyrant Cloud Academy. His strength completely crushed the outer-court student. Nie Tian actually beat Qin Yuhu until he was covered in blood. It was truly inconceivable. "Who is this?" Nie Tian asked in a low voice. Jean de Bao chuckled and said in a low voice, "This is Principal Qi. Leave the rest to him." The white-robed martial artist was called Qi Feng, Tyrant Cloud Academy's deputy dean. Tyrant Cloud Academy had one dean and two deputy deans. Nie Tian let out a long sigh in his heart. Looking at Qi Feng, he was a little shocked. Qi Feng's casual move just now blocked Fan Jinji's fatal blow just right. The exquisiteness of the technique, the power, the accuracy of the position, it was inconceivable. Without a doubt, Qi Feng's strength was far above Fan Jinji's. He was definitely a giant spirit realm powerhouse. Isn't this Principal Qi? Why would he appear here? Yeah, Principal Qi is famous for being cold. It's really strange that he suddenly appeared today. I heard that Principal Qi is a giant spirit realm martial artist and has already condensed a giant spirit true body. I've never seen a giant spirit true body in my life. I really want to experience it. Qi Feng's sudden appearance caused the surrounding crowd to discuss incessantly. Qi Feng was considered a #1 figure in Blue Cloud City. His temperament was cold and he rarely appeared normally. If not for Jean de Bao personally going to find him today, and he just happened to have some friendship with Jean de Bao's father, he would not have appeared here at all. Principal Qi, what are you doing? Fan Jinji looked at Qi Feng cold, not hiding his reproach at all. The people of Blue Cloud Academy all knew that Qi Feng and the Fan family brothers were sworn enemies. The relationship between the two parties was very stiff. Chapter 62. As soon as Qi Feng's words fell, everyone gasped in shock. They had long heard that Qi Feng was indifferent, but they didn't expect him to be so overbearing. Principal Qi, you said that they are your friends, but I'm afraid you don't even know who they are, right? Fan Jinji said in a joking tone. Is that important? Qi Feng asked back coldly. You. Fan Jinji didn't expect Qi Feng to be so overbearing. His face immediately turned gloomy. Everyone dispersed. Qi Feng didn't care about him and glanced at the crowd. Everyone was stunned and couldn't react. Didn't you hear what I said? Qi Feng said again. Everyone came to their senses and immediately scattered like birds and beasts. Qin Yuhu and Qin Yulong were furious, but when they saw Qi Feng's sharp eyes, they couldn't help but retreat. In the end, they could only leave with hatred. Since Qi Feng had appeared, it was impossible to kill Nie Tian. In the blink of an eye, only Qi Feng, Fan Jinji, Nie Tian, and the others were left. Qi Feng, you're good. Let's wait and see. Fan Jinji said hatefully. In the end, he could only choose to leave. Because of Qi Feng's arrival, the disturbance was instantly resolved. This was the power of a powerhouse. I'm leaving, Qi Feng said coldly. He didn't stop and turn to leave. However, he suddenly paused and looked at Nie Tian. You're very talented. I hope you can restrain yourself in the future. Don't provoke people you shouldn't provoke. Otherwise, you will only harm yourself. After saying that, Qi Feng took another step. Nie Tian smiled faintly. Is that a piece of advice? Qi Feng stopped and said, sort of. Nie Tian looked at Qi Feng's figure and shook his head with a smile. He didn't expect that one day, he would be protected by others and have to accept such advice. Qi Feng. At this moment, Qiu Shan suddenly spoke. Hearing Qiu Shan's voice, Qi Feng's figure paused. His expression changed, and surprise flashed in his eyes. Big brother Qiu Shan. Qi Feng suddenly turned around. When he saw Qiu Shan's face clearly, he was ecstatic. Qiu Shan was extremely excited. He nodded slightly, and tears seemed to flow out of his eyes. Brother Qiu Shan, it's really you. Qi Feng was even more excited. He no longer had his previous indifference. He took a step forward and hugged Qiu Shan tightly. Nie Tian was stunned for a moment, then he smiled. He didn't expect these two to be old acquaintances. Qi Feng. Qiu Ling suddenly thought of something and said with surprise, You are Uncle Qiu Shan's sworn brother. Yes, Chi Feng was Qiushan's sworn brother from all those years ago at Tyrant Cloud Academy, and they were best friends. Brother Qiushan, where have you been all these years? Do you know that I've been looking for you? Chi Feng said excitedly. Brother, it's a long story. Let's talk somewhere else. Qiushan calmed down a little, and his heart was filled with many emotions. It was very rare that one of his old friends still cared about him so much. Yes. Principal Qi, it's a joyous occasion for you to reunite with your old friends. I'll prepare a banquet for you at the first-grade restaurant. Let's go now. Jean Debao was extremely surprised. He could tell that Qiushan and Qi Feng's relationship was not ordinary, so he quickly said, All right, good. I'll welcome Brother Qiushan at the first-grade restaurant today. Qi Feng repeatedly said yes, very happy. Back then at Tyrant Cloud Academy, Qiushan had taken care of Qi Feng. Not only did he stand up for him, but he also gave him pointers in martial cultivation. Could even be said that without Qiushan, there would not be Qi Feng today. Qi Feng was originally a cheerful and optimistic person, but he gradually became indifferent. This was also related to Qiushan's sudden departure back then. Now that he had reunited with his old friend, he was naturally very happy. Fatty, what kind of place is the first-grade restaurant? Didn't you want to welcome me? Nie Tian asked as he bumped into Jean Debao. Jean Debao chuckled and said, The first-grade restaurant, the #1 restaurant in Blue Cloud City. You'll know when you get there, boss. Everyone followed Jean Debao. After leaving Tyrant Cloud Academy, they went straight to the first-grade restaurant. The first-grade restaurant is indeed a bit luxurious. 10 minutes later, Nie Tian looked at the super-luxurious restaurant in front of him and sighed softly. Nie Tian had seen the world in his previous life. He had seen many magnificent buildings, but in terms of luxury, the restaurant in front of him was definitely in the top 10 of all the buildings he had seen. Stepping into the first-grade restaurant, Nie Tian further felt the luxury of the interior. 7 treasures glazed lamps, exquisite stone pillars with dragon carvings, exquisite jade steps, and all kinds of treasures hanging on the walls. Even the floor under his feet was inlaid with a layer of purple gold, looking even more dazzling. The first-grade restaurant stood out in one word: luxury. The first-grade restaurant was a restaurant opened by the Jean family. It was known as the #1 restaurant in the Imperial City. From a certain point of view, it was the symbol of the Jean family as the richest family in the Imperial City. Jean Debao directly asked for the 2 most luxurious private rooms. Qiushan Qi Feng had a private room to himself, while the rest of Nie Tian and the others used the other private room. Qiushan Qi Feng reunited with his old friend. There must be endless things to talk about, so the others did not disturb him. After a while, a sumptuous feast was served. There were more than 100 dishes, and all of them were made from various spiritual ingredients. Even Nie Tian could not help but be astonished when he saw it. Fatty, this meal costs at least 1,000 gold coins, right? Qiu Ling'er asked as she ate. Jean Debao chuckled and said, This is the first-grade restaurant's top-notch feast. I don't know how much it costs, but it should be at least 100,000 gold coins. 100,000 gold coins. Qiu Ling'er almost vomited the food she had just eaten. Her face was filled with astonishment. 100,000 gold coins was almost equivalent to the annual income of a large family in a region. For example, the Nie family that Nie Tian came from did not even have a yearly income of 10,000 gold coins. This meal was luxurious to the extreme. This is a piece of cake. As long as Sister Ling'er is happy eating, it's all worth it. Jean Debao chuckled, looking like he did not care. Nie Tian smiled faintly. As someone who had lived 2 lives, how could he not see Jean Debao's intentions towards Qiu Ling'er? He said, Fatty, thank you this time. Otherwise, it would not have been so easy to get away. It's my duty to work for boss. Jean Debao smiled and said, If it wasn't for boss, my fat body would have been lost in Mount Tyrant Cloud today. Chiu Ling blushed and said seriously, Dabeo, I'm sorry. I thought you ran away and even called you a coward. Jean Dabeo chuckled. Looking at Chiu Ling's blushing face full of self-blame, he was extremely happy. Big brother Fatty, Euro wants to eat like this every day in the future. Can I? Nye Euro, who was eating happily at the side, suddenly asked. Sure. Definitely no problem. Jean Dabeo chuckled. Thank you, Big brother Fatty. Nye Euro nodded fiercely with a proud expression. When Nye Euro called him Big brother Fatty, Nye Tian could only smile speechlessly. Halfway through the sumptuous feast, the door to the private room opened, and 3 figures appeared. Apart from Chiu Shan and Chi Feng, there was also a slightly plump middle-aged man with a kind smile. Chapter 63. Hearing Jean Dabeo's address, Nye Tian already knew that the chubby middle-aged man was Jean Dabeo's father. Nye Tian and the others stood up one after another. This was the minimum etiquette. Don't be polite, you all sit down. Jean Mingxin said with a smile, looking approachable. Jean Mingxin looked at Nye Tian and said with a smile, This is Mr. Nye, right? Mr. Jean, you don't have to be polite, just call me Nye Tian. Nye Tian smiled faintly. Dad, I'm already boss Nye Tian's little brother. You can just call me Nye Tian. Calling me Mr. Nye is too polite. Jean Dabeo also said. How can I do that? Jean Mingxin said with a smile. It's rare to see a teenage alchemist, not to mention Mr. Nye is a second-rank alchemist. This Mr. is still necessary. Jean Mingxin had already seen Qiushan. It was Qiushan who told him that Nye Tian was a second-rank alchemist. Boss, you are a second-rank alchemist? Jean Dabeo looked stunned. Nye Tian not only defeated Qin Yuhu, but he was also a second-rank alchemist. This talent was too monstrous. Nye Tian smiled faintly and nodded slightly. After confirming Nye Tian's identity as a second-rank alchemist, Chi Feng immediately lost his composure. He stepped forward and said excitedly, Mr. Nye, please save Big Brother Qiushan. As long as you can restore Big Brother Qiushan's essence meridian, I'm willing to do anything for you. Nye Tian smiled speechlessly. Treating Qiushan was just a matter of raising his hand, but now it seemed like he had to ask for a big reward from others. Nye Tian said indifferently, I've already promised to treat Qiushan, so I will definitely do what I said. I'm not doing this to get anything. I'm just purely repaying Qiushan and Miss Ling for giving us a ride. Chi Feng was slightly taken aback. His identity was the Vice Dean of Tyrant Cloud Academy. He was definitely a top figure in the Blue Cloud Empire. Even the Blue Cloud Emperor had to respectfully call him Mr. Qi. Now he took the initiative to make a promise, but Nye Tian didn't care at all. Chi Feng suddenly felt a sense of loss. Thank you, Mr. Nye. Qiushan nodded heavily and bowed in thanks. Nye Tian nodded slightly and did not say anything else. Afterwards, Jean Mingxin and the others discussed for a while and decided to let Qiushan and Chiu Ling temporarily live in the Jean family. Nye Tian had nowhere else to go, so he temporarily settled down in the Jean residence. After the meal, Chi Feng returned to Tyrant Cloud Academy first, while Nye Tian and the others went to Jean Mansion with Jean Dabeo. Jean Dabeo arranged a unique little courtyard for Nye Tian in the Jean Mansion, not far from Qiushan and Chiu Ling. After settling Nye Euro down, Nye Tian returned to his room. Originally, Nye Tian planned to go to the Alchemist Guild first, but it was already late so he could only go tomorrow. Back in his room, Nye Tian sat cross-legged. He did not rest for even a moment and immediately entered into a state of cultivation. Today, against Qin Yuhu, Nye Tian used an astral soul. Within a short period of time, he was unable to draw an astral soul, so he wanted to improve his strength further. In the battle with Qin Yuhu, Nye Tian urgently felt the weakness of his own strength. Especially in front of a powerhouse like Fan Jinji, he practically had no strength to retaliate. Without much hesitation, Nye Tian directly consumed 3 blood essence pills that Jean de Bao gave him. Blood essence pill, a rank 2 spirit pill. Not only could it rapidly replenish a martial artist's blood chi, but it also had a certain improvement effect on the martial artist's physique. Rich young masters loved to eat this the most. 9 Extremes War God Art, First Level, Metal Extreme Yellow Heavenly Realm. After the blood essence pills entered his body, Nye Tian immediately started circulating the 9 Extremes War God Art. The 9 Extremes War God Art was a super heaven rank martial art that Nye Tian obtained in the Heaven Realm's Forbidden Land, Dark Night Stupa Mountain. The 9 Extremes War God Art had a total of 9 levels. But in his previous life, although Nye Tian already had 9th level Heavenly Emperor strength, he only cultivated the 9 Extremes War God Art to the 5th level, Earth Extreme Mystic Heavenly Realm. Currently, Nye Tian could merely cultivate the 9 Extremes War God Art to the 1st level, Metal Extreme Yellow Heavenly Realm. To want to cultivate to the 2nd level, Wood Extreme Jade Heavenly Realm, he had to at least reach the Manifestation Realm. Circulating the 9 Extremes War God Art, essence energy gushed out from his essence meridians, cleansing his dantian and circulating throughout his entire body. Nye Tian's body directly turned into a vortex, starting to slowly absorb the spirit energy between heaven and earth. Heaven and earth spirit energy flowed into his dantian, cleansing his essence meridians and purifying his physique. After the 9 Extremes War God Art circulated 9 times, Nye Tian felt that the essence energy within his dantian's essence meridians had increased considerably. Broke through to the 4th level origin spirit realm. The corners of Nye Tian's mouth curled into a hint of a smile. During this period of time, even though he had been constantly on the road, Nye Tian had not wasted any time and had been cultivating all along. Coupled with the fact that he had just consumed the blood essence pill, breaking through now was only a matter of time. After breaking through in his strength, Nye Tian was still not satisfied. His divine sense entered the star domain within the 10th essence meridian. Within the star domain, the domain origin formation stood majestically, like a cornerstone that guarded over the heavens and earth. It emitted traces of an ancient and profound aura, existing between the heavens and the earth since time immemorial. The primordial star stone that connected the heavens and the earth stood in the center of the domain origin formation, like a heavenly pillar that connected the heavens and the earth. At this moment, above the primordial star stone, there were 12 stars shining brightly, shining with an everlasting and inextinguishable radiance. These were the 12 stars that Nye Tian had awakened. It was precisely because of the existence of these 12 stars that Nye Tian's strength was so terrifying. My strength has risen by a level, so the power of the stars should also awaken once more. Nye Tian sat down in a lotus position, starting to sense the stars above the 9 heavenly rivers. After a moment, the 4 stars above the first heavenly river sensed it at the same time, suddenly turning bright. 4 rays of light shone on the primordial star stone. The power of the 4 stars awakened at the same time. Very good. Adding the power of the 12 stars previously, I've already awakened the power of 16 stars. My current strength definitely exceeds 40,000 Jin. The corners of Nye Tian's mouth curled up into a confident arc. 40,000 Jin of strength. Even 9th level origin spirit martial artists, who possessed strength-type essence spirits, might not be able to achieve it. Nye Tian was just a mere 4th level origin spirit and could possess the strength of 40,000 Jin. It was seriously terrifying. Furthermore, this was just Nye Tian's pure strength. If he used martial techniques, it would definitely exceed 50,000 Jin. And what's this? Just as Nye Tian was preparing to leave the star domain, he suddenly discovered a strange phenomenon. Nye Tian saw that the power of the 16 stars on the primordial star stone actually formed an arc, like it was a part of some very large painting. Nye Tian immediately realized that these power of the stars did not awaken randomly, but awakened through some sort of sequence. With this, Nie Tian's shock was not small. He immediately sensed the densely packed power of the stars on the primordial star stone. The next instant, Nie Tian was directly dumbfounded on the spot, his entire person petrified. These power of the stars seemed to be able to form some sort of pattern. Inside contains a powerful spirit array power, very much like some sort of totem. After a very, very long time, Nie Tian voiced out the guess in his heart. Although awakening the power of the 16 stars was merely a line, Nie Tian could sense that this line was just the tip of the iceberg of the star totem. If he awakened enough power of the stars, he would absolutely be able to stimulate the power of the star totem. Nie Tian had a feeling that the power of star totems was absolutely enough to destroy the heavens and destroy the earth. Chapter 64. The next morning. Everything was silent, and the eastern horizon shone with a glimmer of light, carefully soaking the light blue sky. A new day was gradually moving in from afar. Nie Tian got up very early, but he slept very well. Inside the chaotic original coffin, he had 10 times more time than others. Opening the door, a gust of fresh air greeted him. Accompanied by rays of golden light, the sun slowly peeked out. Nie Tian took a deep breath and immediately felt refreshed. Nie Tian quietly enjoyed the morning scenery for an hour and felt much calmer. When a martial artist cultivated, not only did they need to cultivate their body, but they also needed to cultivate their heart. Only with a firm heart of martial arts could a martial artist walk further down the road. After a while, the servants of the Jin residence delivered breakfast. Nie Tian was dumbfounded. Jean de Bao actually ordered the exact same dish as the one from the first-grade restaurant yesterday. At this moment, there were more than 10 servants who came to deliver the food alone. Nie Yuro had just climbed out of bed and was overjoyed to see the sumptuous meal. Xiao Guai also enjoyed a meal of mysterious jade steel bamboo. It was much tastier than iron or bamboo. Brother Nie Tian, ro air is full. Nie Yuro finished her meal and hugged Xiao Guai with a satisfied expression. Nie Tian shook his head and smiled. With such a large table of food, it would be strange if the two of them were not full. After eating, Nie Tian prepared to go to the Alchemist Guild to get an alchemist badge. Before he even stepped out of the door, Jean de Bao's figure appeared. Fatty, thank you for your food. Don't be so wasteful next time. Yuro was just joking yesterday. Nie Tian smiled faintly. He had never been an extravagant person. Jean de Bao chuckled and said, "This is the only time. If little sister Yuro eats like this every day, the first-grade house will lose a lot of money." Nie Yuro pouted and said, "Brother Nie Tian, does that mean Ro Air can't eat like this in the future?" "Of course you can't eat like this. Otherwise, if you get fat, you won't be able to marry when you grow up." Nie Tian nodded and smiled. "Alright, Ro eat less in the future. If I get too fat, I won't be able to be big brother Nie Tian's wife," Nie Yuro said seriously. Nie Tian was speechless, and could only shake his head with a smile. "Boss, Uncle Chiu Shan brought Ling to find Principal Qi. What are you planning to do today? Do you want to go to Tyrant Cloud Academy to take a look?" Jean de Bao also believed that Nie Tian had come to participate in the recruitment of Tyrant Cloud Academy, so he asked. Nie Tian said, "I want to go to the Alchemist Guild to do something and buy some medicinal herbs." "Alright." Jean de Bao knew that Nie Tian was an alchemist, so he immediately agreed and chuckled. "I'm a VIP member of the Alchemist Guild. Boss can buy whatever herbs you want." Nie Tian did not stand on ceremony and nodded slightly. This time, he mainly wanted to buy some medicinal herbs that could clear the blood vessels to treat Qiushan, and also some medicinal herbs that could promote cultivation. Nie Tian did not want to buy Spirit Dawn directly. He liked to use the Spirit Dawn that he refined himself. The Alchemist Guild was a colossal organization. It had a long history and had existed since the Middle Ages. The Alchemist Guild gathered almost all the alchemists and was a powerful organization formed by alchemists. The headquarters of the Alchemist Guild was in the Heaven Realm. In his previous life, Nye Tian was one of the 7 great elders of the Heaven Realm Alchemist Guild. The initial purpose of the Alchemist Guild was to protect the alchemists because the alchemists were all weirdos with strong mental power but low combat power. Today, the Alchemist Guild had become one of the strongest forces in the Heaven Realm. Even the Heavenly Emperor Chenin, who caused the death of Nye Tian, did not dare to offend the Heaven Realm Alchemist Guild. Alchemist Guild. Looking at the strange building in front of him, Nye Tian smiled faintly. This was the Alchemist Guild. It was a spherical building with a lustrous luster. It looked exceptionally dazzling and crystal clear, like a huge spirit dan. In any place, the Alchemist Guild was the most luxurious place. This was determined by the respected status of the alchemists. The Alchemist Guild in the Blue Cloud Empire was only a 3rd-grade Alchemist Guild. It belonged to the lowest-grade Alchemist Guild. Welcome, distinguished guest. Just as Nye Tian and the rest stepped in, a sweet-sounding voice sounded. Dressed in revealing clothes, the sexy waitress, Xia Lu, appeared. Seeing Jean de Bao, Xia Lu's face lit up and she asked sweetly, "Young Master Jean, how can I help you?" Jean de Bao was a diamond VIP of the Alchemist Guild. He often visited the Alchemist Guild and was always generous. Most of the waiters knew him. Jean de Bao's small eyes stared at Xia Lu's exaggeratedly full chest, and he could not help but swallow his saliva. Nye Tian could not help but shake his head speechlessly. The Xia Lu in front of him had fair skin, a beautiful appearance, a hot body, 2 dimples on her cheeks, and a pure and pleasant smile. She was indeed a great beauty. But compared to Mo Rushi and Qiu Ling she was still lacking. Cough cough. Jean de Bao realized that he had lost his composure. He quickly coughed twice and said, we want to buy some herbs." Xia Lu smiled sweetly and said, "What herbs do you need, young Master Jean?" Her eyes were always on Jean de Bao. From the beginning to the end, she did not look at Nye Tian. In her eyes, Nye Tian should be Jean de Bao's follower. "Boss, what herbs do we need?" Jean de Bao looked at Nye Tian. "Boss?" Xia Lu was slightly stunned. She did not expect the young man in front of her to be Jean de Bao's boss. It seemed that Jean de Bao was the follower. She smiled charmingly and her attitude immediately changed. "Sir, what do you need?" she asked. Nye Tian did not say much. He directly took out a list and said indifferently, "I want 10 sets of the herbs on this list. All the herbs must be fresh and picked within 3 days. Bring them over later. I want to personally inspect them." "Mister, are you sure you want so many herbs?" Xia Lu took the list and looked at it. She was shocked. There were at least hundreds of herbs on the list and Nye Tian wanted 10 sets. Nye Tian nodded lightly. "Hurry up and get the herbs. Are you afraid that this young master can't afford it?" Jean de Bao said impatiently. "All right." Xia Lu quickly said respectfully, "Please wait a moment." Listening to Nye Tian's tone, he was obviously an alchemist. No wonder Jean de Bao was so respectful in front of him. "Big brother Nye Tian, what are these? Why doesn't Ro know them?" Xia Lu just left and Nye Yuro immediately activated the 100,000 Ys mode. Nye Tian shook his head helplessly as he carefully explained. The herbs placed in the Alchemist Guild Hall were the most basic herbs. Nye Tian could know the details of all the herbs just by using his nose. Jean de Bao was dumbfounded. He did not expect Nye Tian to have such a deep understanding of herbs. "Big brother Nye Tian, this thing looks so strange." Nye Yuro carried Xiao Guai and walked to a strange whisker-like herb and asked curiously, "And?" Nye Tian was stunned for a moment before he exclaimed in surprise, "It's actually purple dragon whisker." Purple dragon whisker was a 7th-tier herb. Not to mention Blue Cloud Empire, even in the Heaven Realm, it was not common. "Fatty, I want this herb." Nie Tian did not have time to explain to Nie Euro and directly said to Jean de Bayo, "I'm sorry, this is a display of herbs for viewing only. It is not for sale." Before Jean de Bayo could answer, a cold voice suddenly sounded behind him. Chapter 65. The young man had an arrogant look on his face. He was wearing the typical robe of an alchemist, and there was a shiny badge on his chest. There were 3 golden imprints engraved on it, which was particularly dazzling. Master Zhang. The young man's appearance immediately caused a commotion. Countless eyes in the crowd focused on the young man. Everyone who looked at him bowed and saluted him. Their faces were filled with awe and worship. If you looked closely, you would find that people's eyes were not focused on his face, but on the shiny badge on his chest. This badge was the symbol of an alchemist, the alchemist badge. The 3 golden marks represented that the young man was a rank 3 alchemist. A rank 3 alchemist, such an identity, even a giant spirit realm expert would have to bow his head in worship. No wonder the crowd's reaction was so sensational. Rank 3 alchemist. Nie Tian was also slightly stunned. He was a little surprised that the rank 3 alchemist in front of him was so young, only about 20 years old. Boss, he is Blue Cloud Empire's #1 alchemist genius, Master Zhang Yifeng. Jean de Bayo reacted and whispered to Nie Tian. So he was Blue Cloud Empire's #1 alchemist genius. No wonder he was only 20 years old, and was already a rank 3 alchemist. A 20 years old rank 3 alchemist, his talent in alchemy was very amazing. Especially in a small place like Blue Cloud Empire. Zhang Yifeng was very arrogant, looking at Nie Tian with contempt. He had been observing Nie Tian for a while, and was very shocked by Nie Tian's understanding of herbs. Some of the deeper knowledge of herbs, even he didn't know. Zhang Yifeng guessed that Nie Tian must have come to the Alchemist Guild to collect his alchemist badge. When he saw that Nie Tian was only 15 or 16 years old, he suddenly felt a sense of crisis. Zhang Yifeng looked at Nie Tian with a very strange expression and said cold, "Your Excellency can be considered to have some understanding of herbs. What you know can be said, but what you don't know cannot be said. The herb in front of you is obviously a snake tail root, but you said it was some purple dragon beard. This master has studied herbs for many years, and has never heard of the name purple dragon beard. You must be making it up to scare people." Speaking up to this point, Zhang Yifeng flicked his sleeves and reprimanded, "This master hates people like you who pretend to be knowledgeable the most. The Alchemist Guild does not welcome people like you. Please leave now." Zhang Yifeng had chosen to appear at this time because Nie Tian had misspoken. He had called the common snake tail root a purple dragon beard. So this person is pretending to know what he doesn't know. I saw him talking to the little girl clearly and logically just now, so I thought he was another young alchemist. Sigh, morals are really degenerating these days. Instead of learning good things at such a young age, you're trying to show off your knowledge. Now, there's a problem with the sales. You're still too young. If you know, then you know. If you don't know, then you don't know. What's the point of pretending to know and spouting nonsense? The crowd burst into laughter. They were all waiting to watch a good show. Boss. Jean de Bayo broke out in a cold sweat. Zhang Yifeng was not someone he could offend. Even Jean de Bayo's father, Jean Mingxin, had to be respectful when he saw Zhang Yifeng. "It's okay." Nie Tian smiled faintly, motioning Jean de Bayo to calm down. "Snake tail root, is it?" Nie Tian smiled slightly and said, "I admit you're right to call it snake tail root, because it is indeed a snake tail root. However, this snake tail root is different from ordinary snake tail root." "What's different?" Zhang Yifeng saw Nie Tian's calm and composed face and thought of the latter's previous understanding of medicinal herbs. He couldn't help but be surprised. Nie Tian glanced at Zhang Yifeng, frowned, and continued, "Ordinary snake tail roots mature in 100 years, after which they stop growing. But the snake tail root itself is a very strong organism. If it encounters a suitable environment, such as the extreme cold of the polar regions or the high temperature of a volcano, its heaven-defying vitality can be completely stimulated. In this kind of environment, the snake tail root does not have a mature period and can grow without limit. Nonsense. Not waiting for Nie Tian to finish, Zhang Yifeng coldly interrupted. An unlimited growth of medicinal herbs, this was the first time Zhang Yifeng heard of it, and it was completely against common sense. Nie Tian smiled faintly and continued, once the serpent tail root grows without limit, it will grow thin and long purple whiskers. Therefore, this kind of serpent tail root is called purple dragon whiskers. If you don't believe me, you can take out the purple dragon whiskers and see if there are purple whiskers under the snake tail. Okay. Zhang Yifeng hesitated for a moment, but finally agreed and coldly said, "This master will expose your lies in front of everyone today, so that everyone can see the true face of a swindler." Zhang Yifeng said and was about to take out the purple dragon whiskers, but was stopped by Nie Tian. Nie Tian said with a smile, "Let me make it clear first. If what I said is correct, you must sell me the purple dragon whiskers, and also sell it to me at the price of snake tail root." Purple dragon whiskers was a 7th-grade medicinal herb, while snake tail root was only a 2nd-grade medicinal herb. The difference between the two was like heaven and earth. Zhang Yifeng was stunned for a moment, and then immediately said, "What if you're wrong? What do you want?" Nie Tian asked back. Zhang Yifeng thought for a moment, then said brazenly, "If you're wrong, I want you to leave your eyes behind." Nie Tian frowned and took a cold look at Zhang Yifeng. If Zhang Yifeng was just being competitive just now, then right now, he was being vicious. Taking a step back, even if Nie Tian was wrong, he shouldn't have to pay with his eyes. Zhang Yifeng just couldn't bear to see others being more outstanding than him, and he couldn't tolerate the appearance of someone more talented than him. "Boss, forget it, let's just leave. Isn't it just a broken medicinal herb?" Jean de Bao's forehead was filled with sweat as he pulled Nie Tian and said. Nie Tian, however, faintly smiled and said, "I agree. Take out the purple dragon whiskers." "Boss, this..." Jean de Bao swallowed his saliva, and a chill went down his back. He really couldn't understand where Nie Tian got his confidence from. One must know that Zhang Yifeng was a 3rd-rank pill master. Humph. Zhang Yifeng snorted and looked at Nie Tian a little complacently, as if he was saying, "I'm definitely going to take your eyes." Without eyes, no matter how monstrous their talent in alchemy was, they wouldn't be that outstanding. Zhang Yifeng took out the purple dragon whiskers from the cabinet, then carefully pulled out the long snake tail. Right at the moment when the purple dragon whiskers was completely lifted up, Zhang Yifeng's entire body stiffened. Everyone extended their heads to take a look. Under the purple dragon whiskers' long snake tail, countless thin and dense purple tail whiskers appeared. It was exactly the same as what Nie Tian said. My God, this young man actually got it right. The snake tail really has purple tail whiskers. That's right, can the snake tail really grow to this extent? I've really broadened my horizons today. What snake tail? This is the purple dragon whiskers. Everyone went into an uproar, and all of them looked at Nie Tian with an inconceivable gaze. This is impossible. After being petrified for a few seconds, Zhang Yifeng suddenly roared, and his throat became hoarse. There's nothing impossible. Nie Tian looked at Zhang Yifeng and said faintly, "The path of alchemy is broad and profound. As long as one's heart is limitless, one can become a legend of alchemy. Your talent in alchemy is not bad, but it's a pity that you're too eager for quick success, and you're narrow-minded. If there's no expert to guide you, your achievements in this life are destined to be limited." Chapter 66. After Nie Tian said that, Zhang Yifeng stood rooted to the ground, looking at Nie Tian in disbelief. When Nie Tian spoke earlier, it was totally the attitude of a senior with a teaching tone which made Zhang Yifeng unable to accept it. Since young, Zhang Yifeng had countless halos above his head. Even when the Alchemist Association's president spoke to him, it was also an equal attitude. More importantly, Zhang Yifeng became a third-rank alchemist completely by himself without a real teacher to teach him. Relying on his own talent and perseverance to reach this step, Zhang Yifeng's alchemy Dao talent was indeed dazzling. "Are you teaching me?" After some time, Zhang Yifeng reacted and his face was so gloomy that it could almost drip water. In Zhang Yifeng's view, Nie Tian must be some big family's descendant and relied on countless resources to have such amazing alchemy Dao knowledge. He looked down on this kind of family's young masters the most. Without the support of the family behind them, these people were nothing. Nie Tian smiled faintly and said, "Just speaking the truth. If you feel that I'm teaching you, then I'm teaching you." Nie Tian was really just speaking the truth, and those who could receive his personal teachings were really not many. Everyone looked at Nie Tian's calm and relaxed expression and were collectively stunned. It was hard to imagine that a teenager was actually teaching Blue Cloud Empire's #1 genius alchemist a lesson. Impudent! Zhang Yifeng breathed out a mouthful of turbid air like a volcanic eruption and immediately roared angrily as he reprimanded, "Stinking brat, who do you think you are? A fourth-rank alchemist? A mere family's young master who merely came into contact with some medicinal herbs, that's all, and you actually dare to teach this master a lesson. If I say that you're insulting me, then you're going to die right now, do you believe it?" Insulting alchemists was practically a taboo for martial artists, because behind every alchemist, there were countless martial artists who were willing to risk their lives for them. Moreover, alchemists also had the Alchemist Association's backing, and their identity was more terrifying than anyone else. The first thing Nie Tian did when he arrived at the Imperial City was to obtain an alchemist badge. This action was to borrow the Alchemist Guild's power to protect himself. With the Alchemist badge, one would be a legitimate alchemist and would be able to obtain a set of alchemist robe specially refined by the Alchemist Guild. As long as you wore an alchemist's robe, it represented your identity. As long as it wasn't a personal grudge or you were the one who took the initiative to stir up trouble, if anyone dared to harm you, the Alchemist Guild would step out to help you settle it. No matter how powerful your enemy is. Of course, as a noble alchemist, he was highly respected by martial artists. Generally speaking, no martial artist would take the initiative to offend a pill master. It was precisely because of the special identity of an alchemist that Zhang Yifeng's status was so high. Even the members of the royal family in the imperial city had to lower their heads when they saw him. Now, there was actually a brat who didn't know what was good for him that lectured him. How could he endure this? "Master Zhang, you've misunderstood. My boss was just speaking casually. He definitely didn't have any intention of insulting you." Jean de Bao's forehead was filled with beads of sweat. Insulting an alchemist, this sin was too big. Nie Tian raised his head slightly, took a look at Zhang Yifeng and said, "If you feel that I insulted you, then so be it. I just feel that your attitude of looking at the sky from the bottom of a well is a pity for such a talented alchemist." "You." A cold killing intent flashed past Zhang Yifeng's face. He suddenly took a step forward and said word by word, "Say it again." Just as Zhang Yifeng was about to make a move, a dozen or so powerful auras suddenly appeared in the corners of the guild hall. They were all manifestation realm martial artists. Nie Tian had long sensed the existence of these people. They were all the guards of the Alchemist Guild. Normally, they wouldn't appear, but once someone caused trouble, they would immediately take action without any mercy. However, Nie Tian wasn't moved in the slightest and said indifferently, "It's the same even if I say it again. You are arrogant and short-sighted. You can only see the sky as big as the mouth of the well, so you think that the sky is only as big as the mouth of the well. If you can't change your attitude, your achievements in this life are destined to be limited." Nie Tian's voice wasn't loud, but a few light words caused the entire hall to sink into a deathly silence. Only the sound of heavy breathing could be heard in the surroundings. Zhang Yifeng was Blue Cloud Empire's #1 alchemist genius. He was only 20 years old, and was already a third-rank alchemist. Everyone thought that his future was limitless. However, Nie Tian actually lectured him in front of everyone and directly said that his achievements were destined to be limited. This was practically a slap to Zhang Yifeng's face. And it was a naked slap to his face. This was intolerable. Zhang Yifeng's entire body trembled violently. His mouth was only inhaling and not exhaling. His entire person was like a suddenly boiling volcano, about to erupt in an instant. "Stinking brat, you are courting death." Suddenly, a furious voice rolled out from Zhang Yifeng's throat. He pointed at Nie Tian and roared madly, "Kill him!" As soon as he roared, more than 10 black-clothed cultivators suddenly appeared in the surroundings. "Get out of the way!" The leading black-clothed cultivator had the strongest aura. He had actually reached the 9th level of the all-creation realm. The black-clothed cultivator roared, and the surrounding crowd immediately scattered like the tide. In the blink of an eye, only Nie Tian and the others were left in the center of the hall. Jean de Bao was scared silly, gulping down his saliva. Nie Yuro's little face was also deathly pale. Xiao Guai, who was in her arms, also opened its drowsy eyes. Nie Tian swept his gaze over the black-clothed cultivators in front of him, then looked at Zhang Yifeng and said abruptly, "Using the profound Yin grass to suppress the demonic fire doesn't feel good, does it? Your pupils have shrunk, and your forehead has turned red. This means that the demonic fire has already invaded your Yuan spirit Yuan meridian. In less than 10 days, the demonic fire will burn your Yuan spirit and Yuan meridian. At that time, it will be difficult for you to even survive, much less continue being an alchemist." These few baffling words made Zhang Yifeng's entire person completely sluggish. Bean-sized beads of sweat flowed down from his forehead. The terror in his heart could not be concealed and showed on his face. Seeing Zhang Yifeng's expression suddenly change, the dozen or so black-clothed cultivators were also stunned, not daring to act rashly. "Who are you?" Zhang Yifeng asked solemnly, his face revealing an extremely pained expression. The demonic fire, this was Zhang Yifeng's greatest secret. He had never mentioned it to anyone before. How could Nie Tian possibly know? The reason why Zhang Yifeng's alchemy Dao talent was so outstanding was that when he was very young, he fused with a type of demonic fire by chance, the Doomsday Flame. It was precisely with the Doomsday Flame that Zhang Yifeng could become a Tier 3 alchemist at a young age. If he could obtain the guidance of an alchemy master, he would have long been a Tier 4 alchemy master, or even a Tier 5 alchemy master. However, a month ago, the Doomsday Flame in Zhang Yifeng's body suddenly went out of control and became incomparably tyrannical. It even wanted to burn his Yuan meridian. Helpless, Zhang Yifeng flipped through a large number of ancient books and finally saw in a book that the profound Yin grass could suppress the demonic nature of the Doomsday Flame. After using the profound Yin grass, the Doomsday Flame was slightly alleviated. But the good times did not last long. In recent days, the profound Yin grass could no longer suppress the Doomsday Flame. Instead, it made the latter have an even more violent backlash. Zhang Yifeng knew that if he still did not suppress the Doomsday Flame, his cultivation would definitely be wasted. Chapter 67. Nie Tian looked at Zhang Yifeng and smiled faintly. "Who I am is not important. What's important is that I know how to suppress the demon fire." "Really?" Zhang Yifeng's body shook as if he was struck by lightning. His eyes were filled with desire. For the past month, he had been tortured by the demon fire in his body every day. Even though he had the mysterious Yin grass to suppress the demon fire, the mysterious Yin grass was still an extremely poisonous plant. Its toxicity was very strong, and its side effects were even worse. Just yesterday, Zhang Yifeng suddenly felt numb all over his body, and his hands were gradually losing feeling. His dantian felt like it was being burned by a raging fire, and it was extremely painful. Nie Tian's expression was indifferent as he said, You started using the mysterious een grass 20 days ago. The mysterious een grass is extremely poisonous, and indeed has a suppressive effect on the demon fire. However, the demon fire is violent by nature, and the more you try to suppress it, the more violent it becomes. In the beginning, you only used 1 mysterious een grass a day, but now, even if you use 10 mysterious een grasses, you still won't be able to suppress the demon fire. 10 mysterious een grasses are enough to poison a 4th-rank spirit beast to death. So, I guess your body is numb now, especially your hands, they are almost losing feeling. Zhang Yifeng looked at Nie Tian in shock. The shock and astonishment in his heart were written all over his face. He didn't know how Nie Tian knew this, because he had never mentioned this to anyone. Nie Tian paused for a moment and smiled faintly. How about it? Do you want me to continue? At this time, everyone in the hall was dumbfounded. They stared at Nie Tian and Zhang Yifeng with their mouths agape. Although these people didn't know what the demon fire and mysterious een grass in Nie Tian's words were, they could tell that Nie Tian knew something that was crucial to Zhang Yifeng's life. Please tell me how to suppress the demon fire, I beg you. Suddenly, Zhang Yifeng took a step forward, grabbed Nie Tian's shoulder, and cried almost crazily. Seeing Zhang Yifeng's state, everyone stared at Nie Tian in astonishment, trying to guess the identity of the young man in front of them. How could he make the number 1 genius alchemist in Blue Cloud Empire lose his composure like this? Nie Tian looked at Zhang Yifeng, who had lost his composure, and said with a playful smile, "Just now, I only said a few words of truth, and some people couldn't take it anymore. They even said they wanted to kill me. Are you begging me now?" Zhang Yifeng was stunned. Looking at the calm youth in front of him, he suddenly made up his mind. Plop! Under the watchful eyes of everyone, Zhang Yifeng directly knelt in front of Nie Tian and spoke in a clear voice. "You're right, mister. I didn't know what's good for me. If mister can suppress the demonic fire in my body, I am willing to worship mister as my master and serve mister for the rest of my life." The feeling of being burned by the raging fire was too painful. Zhang Yifeng did not want to endure it for even a moment longer. Moreover, he had indeed thought it through before deciding to acknowledge Zhang Xian as his master. In fact, Zhang Yifeng had long discovered that Nie Tian's alchemy Dao attainments were far above his. Just the understanding of some medicinal herbs was far beyond the average person's. Zhang Yifeng guessed that either Nie Tian had an incomparably powerful master behind him, or he had an incomparably powerful family. Therefore, as long as he acknowledged Nie Tian as his master, he would actually have a huge advantage. In the world of martial arts, the strong were revered. The alchemy Dao was the same, those who knew were the best. Nie Tian's alchemy Dao attainments were far above Zhang Yifeng's. It was not strange that the latter wanted to acknowledge him as his master. Zhang Yifeng's kneeling was out of the ordinary. The entire guild hall was filled with gasps. Everyone had a dumbfounded look on their faces. "What's going on?" was written on their faces. The dignified Blue Cloud Empire's number 1 alchemist genius actually knelt down. Moreover, he was kneeling to a teenager. What's more, he was kneeling to acknowledge him as his master. Jean Debao and Zhang Yifeng were both at a loss. They looked at Nie Tian in surprise. In their hearts they were incomparably proud. Fortunately, they had acknowledged Nie Tian as their boss early on. Jean Debao was even thinking at this time that if Zhang Yifeng really became Nie Tian's disciple, then wouldn't he be a generation older than the other party? Just thinking about it made him feel comfortable. Nie Tian looked at Zhang Yifeng, and the corner of his mouth hooked up into a strange arc. Zhang Yifeng did have some talent, and he also possessed the devil fire. With a little training, it was very likely that he would have some achievements in the alchemy Dao. But these were far from enough. Nie Tian's standards for accepting disciples were very high. Not accepting without talent, not accepting without perseverance, not accepting without a strong temperament, not accepting with poor character, not accepting even more. After thinking for a while, Nie Tian said faintly, You're not qualified to acknowledge me as your master, at least not now. If you're willing, I can temporarily accept you as a registered disciple. As for whether you can become an official disciple in the future, that will depend on your performance." As soon as Nye Tian's words came out, everyone was once again shocked to the extreme. Blue Cloud Empire's #1 alchemy master genius knelt down in front of him to acknowledge him as his master, but Nye Tian actually did not agree and could only be a registered disciple. This was simply seeing a ghost in the flesh. Did the sun rise from the northwest today? A registered disciple, although a disciple in name, was no different from a servant. The master did not have any obligation to teach the registered disciple, but the registered disciple must serve the master with the etiquette of a master. Simply put, Zhang Yifeng must acknowledge Nye Tian as his master, and Nye Tian had no responsibility towards Zhang Yifeng. He could waste him at any time. In fact, what everyone did not know was that even this registered disciple, Nye Tian, was willing to accept him only because he was kind enough to lower the standards. Even if he became Nye Tian's registered disciple, it was enough to change Zhang Yifeng's life. Nye Tian just did not want to waste a talented alchemy master. Zhang Yifeng was stunned for a moment, and then reacted. Glancing at Nye Tian's expressionless face, he immediately opened his mouth and said, "Student, thanks master." Zhang Yifeng was about to kneel 3 times and kowtow 9 times in front of Nye Tian to acknowledge him as his master, but was stopped by Nye Tian's hand. "Get up. There's no need for the apprenticeship ceremony. Wait until you become an official disciple, then we'll talk about it." Nye Tian said lightly. "Yes, student obeys." Zhang Yifeng stood up and said respectfully, "All right. The good show is over, disperse now." Nye Tian swept his eyes over the crowd and said while waving his hand. Everyone felt their faces stiffen, as if they had seen a strange and bizarre drama. It was simply unbelievable. After a while, the crowd gradually dispersed. At this time, the Alchemist Guild's waitress, Xia Lu, walked over while trembling. Everything that happened just now, she had seen it all. Now she finally knew why Jean de Bao would be Nye Tian's little brother. "Mister, these are the herbs you wanted." Xia Lu handed over a very exaggerated big bag of herbs. Her eyes were filled with awe. Nye Tian carefully checked the herbs and nodded his head in satisfaction, indicating Jean de Bao could pay. Zhang Yifeng hurriedly stepped forward and said, "Teacher, from now on, all the herbs that you buy from the Alchemist Guild, just put it all on this student's bill." Saying that, Zhang Yifeng respectfully handed the purple dragon whisker to Nye Tian. Nye Tian took the purple dragon whisker, smiled faintly and said, "Zhang Yifeng, your talent is not low, and your luck is also not bad. The devil fire to you is both an opportunity and a challenge. If you can't make good use of the devil fire in your body, your ending may be worse than you think." Chapter 68. Zhang Yifeng had been tortured by the doomsday flames for a month, and he no longer wanted to endure the pain of being burned by the flames. Nye Tian smiled lightly and took a step forward. He placed a hand on Zhang Yifeng's back and channeled a wave of origin energy into him. "It's the doomsday flame." Nye Tian's expression changed slightly when he sensed the demonic nature of the demonic fire in Zhang Yifeng's body. Nye Tian hadn't expected the demonic fire in Zhang Yifeng's body to be so powerful. The doomsday flame was ranked 13th on the demonic fire list. It was refined from the lava core of the doomsday volcano. After absorbing 10,000 years of baleful earth chi, it possessed an extremely strong demonic nature. It was rumored that it had the power to burn the heavens and the earth. However, the doomsday flame in Zhang Yifeng's body was clearly not the main body of the demonic flame. Instead, it was just a part of the doomsday flame. Although it was only a portion of it, its might was unimaginable. For Zhang Yifeng to be able to endure the burning pain of the doomsday flame, his mental fortitude was also rare. "Teacher, is the doomsday flame very difficult to suppress?" Zhang Yifeng was very nervous. After all, this concerned his life. Nie Tian sighed softly and said with a smile, "Although the doomsday flame is terrifying, it is not a problem for Master. Use the 7 leaves meridian cleansing grass, heaven essence lotus, and purple ginseng. Use the ratio of 3 to 4 to concoct medicine. Take it 3 times a day and it will be able to suppress the demonic nature of the doomsday flame." "Thank you, teacher." Zhang Yifeng was so moved that he almost cried. He quickly bowed to express his gratitude. Nie Tian said, "Don't be in such a hurry to thank me. The doomsday flame's earth-fiendish qi was very heavy, and it was almost impossible to suppress it. If you want to completely deal with the doomsday flames, you must fuse it with your own origin spirit and use it." "Then what should we do?" Zhang Yifeng knew how terrifying the doomsday flame was. Previously, when he was refining pills, he only used the doomsday flame slightly, and every time, he would receive unexpected miraculous effects. If the doomsday flame could fuse with his origin spirit and be used by him, his alchemy Dao cultivation would definitely have a qualitative leap. Nie Tian glanced at Zhang Yifeng and said indifferently, "How could it be easy to fuse with the demonic fire? Although the doomsday flame in your body is only a very small part, you will need at least 5th or even 6th grade medicinal herbs or elixirs to supplement it." After a pause, Nie Tian continued, "Use the method I told you to suppress the demonic fire first. As for the matter of fusing with the demonic fire in the future, if your performance is good enough, I will definitely help you." "Thank you, teacher," Zhang Yifeng said respectfully. Nie Tian nodded and prepared to leave. Nie Tian originally wanted to receive an alchemist badge. Although he would not receive a Tier 4 alchemist badge, a Tier 2 alchemist badge was enough. However, from the looks of it now, there was no need for that. Zhang Yifeng was enough. "Ah, right." At this moment, Nie Tian suddenly thought of a matter and said, "Recently, did a person surnamed Gu appear in the Alchemist Guild?" The alchemist surnamed Gu, Nie Tian was referring to Gu Sanso, who he had previously fought with. Since Qin Yulong appeared in Blue Cloud City, then Gu Sanso must have come as well. Previously, Gu Sanso had used Nie Yuro to threaten Nie Tian. Nie Tian would not forget that. Moreover, Gu Sanso was a Tier 4 alchemist, which was a big threat to Nie Tian. "Teacher, are you talking about Grandmaster Gu?" Zhang Yifeng asked in surprise. "And, do you know this person?" Nie Tian asked. "A little," Zhang Yifeng said. "Grandmaster Gu is not from Blue Cloud Empire. I think the Qin clan invited him from Wen Qin Empire to treat the princess. Grandmaster Gu appeared at the Alchemist Guild once before. I think he should be in the palace now." "So he is from Wen Qin Empire." Nie Tian smiled. "I understand. Wen Qin Empire was an upper-tier empire of Blue Cloud Empire, a second-tier empire of the 3,000 small worlds. Blue Cloud Empire was only a vassal state of Wen Qin Empire." "Teacher, do you know Grandmaster Gu?" Zhang Yifeng asked curiously. Nie Tian said, "I have a personal grudge with him. Help me keep an eye on him." "Yes." Zhang Yifeng bowed. Nie Tian nodded and said, "Help me find someone to make 12 silver needles for acupuncture." "Okay." Zhang Yifeng did not dare to refuse. After settling all these, Nie Tian did not delay and left immediately. Zhang Yifeng wanted to stay by Nie Tian's side but was rejected by Nie Tian. Anyway, Zhang Yifeng was at the Alchemist Guild. If Nie Tian needed him, he could find someone to call him. After leaving the Alchemist Guild, Nie Tian immediately returned to the Jin mansion. At this moment, Jin de Bao was full of admiration for Nie Tian. With just a few words, he managed to subdue the #1 genius alchemist in Blue Cloud Empire. Not only that, he even accepted him as a disciple. Everything that happened in the Alchemist Guild today was completely out of Jin de Bao's expectations. Who would have thought that with Zhang Yifeng's identity, he would actually become Nie Tian's disciple? This was simply shocking. Nie Tian felt that it was nothing. For Zhang Yifeng to be able to become his disciple, it could be said that he had run into dog shit luck. After returning to the Jin mansion, Nie Tian went into his room and instructed Jin Debao not to let anyone disturb him. Even Nie Yuro was not allowed to disturb him. For the next few days, Nie Tian planned to concentrate on concocting pills. He had a pill cauldron that he got from Mo Tai last time. For 3 whole days, Nie Tian stayed in his room alone. He did not eat, drink, sleep, or rest. 3 days later, when he came out of his room again, Nie Tian had a lot more pills and a few bottles of medicine on him. 10 Meridian Awakening pills, 10 Blood Essence pills, 10 Marrow Cleansing pills, 10. Using 3 days, Nie Tian concocted over 100 pills and quite a lot of medicine. If anyone knew about this, they would definitely think of Nie Tian as a monster. In 3 days, he concocted over 100 pills. Even a rank 5 alchemist would find it hard to concoct a level 1 pill. When Nie Tian walked out of his room, he saw Qiu Shan and the others walking over. Nie Yuro was also with them. During the few days that Nie Tian was concocting pills, Nie Yuro had been with Qiu Ling. Jin Debao brought the 2 girls to stroll around Blue Cloud City. Big brother Nie Tian, you finally came out. Nie Yuro ran over while carrying Xiao Guai and held onto Nie Tian's hand coquettishly. Nie Tian smiled faintly and pinched Nie Yuro's delicate little face. Mr. Nie Tian. Qiu Shan already knew that Nie Tian took Zhang Yifeng as an in-name disciple. Although it was unbelievable, it really happened. Therefore, his attitude towards Nie Tian was even more respectful. Nie Tian nodded slightly. Then, he took out a bottle of medicine and handed it to Qiu Shan, saying, "This is 9 Revolutions Spirit Elixir. Take 3 drops a day. 10 days later, your damaged meridians will show signs of recovery. At that time, I'll use acupuncture to awaken your meridians with silver needles." The reason why Nie Tian asked Zhang Yifeng to prepare 12 silver needles was to treat Qiu Shan. "Thank you, Mr. Nie." Qiu Shan's hands were trembling as he received the medicine. Right now, he had an indescribable trust towards Nie Tian. He felt that anything could happen to Nie Tian. Nie Tian smiled faintly. When he saw that Qiu Shan and the others were about to leave, he asked, "Where are you guys going?" Jin Debao chuckled and said, "Boss, today is the start of Tyrant Cloud Academy's recruitment. Boss, do you want to join in the fun?" After witnessing Nie Tian's strength, Jin Debao did not think that Nie Tian would be interested in joining Tyrant Cloud Academy's recruitment. Chapter 69. Half an hour later, Nie Tian and the others appeared in Tyrant Cloud Academy. Tyrant Cloud Academy was the #1 martial arts academy in Blue Cloud Empire, and it was also the strongest and oldest martial arts academy in Blue Cloud Empire. In Blue Cloud Empire, Tyrant Cloud was the holy land of martial arts in the hearts of all the youngsters. So many people. Nie Tian couldn't help but shake his head and smile as he looked at the dense crowd in the huge square. He didn't expect that a small Tyrant Cloud Academy would actually have so many people participating in the recruitment. The square was crowded with people, and a rough estimate was that there were at least tens of thousands of people. "Boss, today is the selection for Tyrant Cloud Academy. All the people in Blue Cloud Empire who have awakened their origin spirit and are below the age of 20 are here," Jin Debao introduced to Nie Tian rather proudly. Nie Tian nodded, looked at Qiu Ling-er and smiled. "Miss Ling-er, are you confident?" Qiu Ling-er frowned slightly and shook her head. "I don't know. Is the recruitment requirement for Tyrant Cloud Academy very high?" Nie Tian couldn't help but ask when he saw Qiu Ling-er's worried look. Nie Tian knew that Qiu Ling-er's strength was at the 3rd level of origin spirit, and she was only 13 years old. Although this kind of talent wasn't top-notch, it was still not bad. It shouldn't be a problem for her to enter a martial arts academy in a third-rate empire. Young Master Jin. At this moment, a sneaky-looking young man suddenly ran over. "Jin Ming, you came at the right time. Did you get the information that I wanted?" Jean de Bao asked with a chuckle. Jean Ming didn't rush to answer, but looked at Nye Tian with a shrewd smile and nodded. You must be boss Nye Tian? You know me? Nye Tian smiled faintly. Of course I know you. Jean Ming was very excited and said, Boss Nye Tian is Master Zhang Yifeng's teacher. Everyone in Blue Cloud City knows that. You are now a big shot in Blue Cloud City. Nye Tian couldn't help but smile speechlessly. So I am already so famous. What happened in the Alchemist Guild had already spread throughout Blue Cloud City in 3 days. Now, the name Nye Tian could be said to be known by everyone in Blue Cloud City. It was no exaggeration to say that Nye Tian was now in the limelight in Blue Cloud City. Jean Ming, stop talking nonsense. Hurry up and tell me what you know. Jean de Bao was a little impatient as he urged. Yes. Jean Ming laughed mischievously and said, Young Master Jean, I've asked around. This time, the academy had recruited a total of 180 new students. There were about 120 confirmed spots and less than 60 free spots. If Miss Ling wants to enter the academy, her results must be in the top 60. 120 already decided. How shady. Jean de Bao couldn't help but grit his teeth. Nye Tian was stunned for a moment, not quite understanding. Jean de Bao explained, Tyrant Cloud's recruitment has a fixed quota every year, but most of the quotas have already been decided by the major families in the Imperial City. Only an extremely small portion of the quotas are free quotas. In the past, there were around 100 free spots every year. This year, there were only 60. How goddamn shady. Nye Tian frowned and smiled wryly. He didn't expect that there were so many tricks in the recruitment of a third-rate Empire's martial arts academy. There were a total of 180 spots, and 120 were taken by the major families. Only 60 were left for commoners. It was indeed shady enough. What about the others? Jean de Bao asked again. Jean Ming pursed his lips and continued, There were a total of 12,000 new students who signed up this year. There were 3 people worth paying attention to, Qin family's Qin Feng, Liang family's Liang Yunlong, and a commoner, Ling Tian. These 3 people are all at the 9th level origin spirit realm, and their origin spirits are all weapon spirit. They're this year's most popular newcomer kings. Newcomer king? Nye Tian glanced at Jean Ming. He had heard Qiu Linger mention before that Qiu Shan was once the newcomer king of Tyrant Cloud Academy. But Nye Tian still didn't know what newcomer king meant. Jean Ming explained, After the academy confirms the quota of new students, there will be a martial meet for new students to compete in martial arts. The first place will be the newcomer king. What are the benefits of being the newcomer king? Nye Tian asked with a faint smile. The benefits are great. Before Jean Ming could speak, Jean de Bao snatched it over and said excitedly, The newcomer king can obtain generous rewards. After entering the academy, the cultivation resources are several times that of ordinary students. Martial arts, martial skills, essence crystals, cultivation rooms, spirit gathering formations, whatever you want. Most importantly, there's also a chance to cultivate with our beautiful dean for 10 days. The beautiful headmistress? Nye Tian was taken aback. Jean de Bao shrunk his neck and said with a chuckle, Boss, you still don't know, right? Our Tyrant Cloud's dean is a woman, and she's the #1 beauty of Blue Cloud City. Nye Tian shook his head, speechless. However, he was quite surprised that Tyrant Cloud's dean was a woman. Nye Tian suddenly looked at Qiu Shan and said, Qiu Shan, with your relationship with Qi Feng, it shouldn't be difficult to get a reserved spot, right? Why put Miss Ling in such a difficult position? Before Qiu Shan could speak, Qiu Ling said stubbornly, I won't let Uncle Qi help me. I must enter Tyrant Cloud Academy with my own abilities. Nye Tian looked at Qiu Ling and couldn't help but smile. He couldn't tell that Qiu Ling was a girl with a backbone. Sigh. Jean de Bao sighed and said, Boss, you don't know. I've been begging Ling for days, but she insists on entering the academy with her own abilities. Isn't it the same? It doesn't matter how she gets in, as long as she can enter the academy. Damn fatty, stop talking. Chiu Ling pouted stubbornly. Alright, I won't say any more. I won't say any more, Jean de Bao said helplessly. Nie Tian could only smile. In his opinion, Chiu Ling should have no problem entering Tyrant Cloud Academy, but there was no hope for her to compete for the newcomer king. Tyrant Cloud's rules were really interesting. The newcomer king could train with the dean for 10 days. It was indeed very attractive. Even Nie Tian couldn't help but be tempted. What kind of person is your beautiful dean? She sounds pretty good. Nie Tian asked with interest. Jean de Bao smiled and said, Boss, our beautiful dean is called Rui Qinyu. She's a big shot in Blue Cloud City and is publicly recognized as the #1 beauty in Blue Cloud City. She's also very young. I heard that she's only 20 years old. The most terrifying thing is that she's the only true energy realm martial artist in Blue Cloud Empire. 20 years old, true energy realm martial artist. Nie Tian couldn't help but be slightly surprised. In these 3,000 small worlds, a 20-year-old true energy realm martial artist was definitely rare. It seemed that Mou, one of the 3 great monsters of Sumi Ling City, was also a true energy realm martial artist and was also 20 years old. If what Jean de Bao said was true, then Rui Qianyu's martial arts talent was almost no less than Mou's. Sigh. Jean de Bao suddenly sighed and said, I still haven't had the chance to see Dean Rui. How good would it be if I was the newcomer king back then? Nie Tian looked at Jean de Bao. The latter was still at the first level of the origin spirit realm. He really didn't know how he entered Tyrant Cloud Academy back then. If Jean de Bao could be the newcomer king with his strength, then Tyrant Cloud Academy was really trash. Qin Feng, Liang Yunlong, Ling Tian. I wonder which of these 3 will be the newcomer king. Being the newcomer king means being able to see the beautiful dean. How enviable. Jean de Bao shook his head and said with an envious expression. Damn fatty, do you really want to see your beautiful dean that much? Chiu Ling said unhappily. That's not it. Jean de Bao smiled and quickly said, with little sister Ling by my side, I don't want to see any dean. Who's with you? Chiu Ling pouted, but there was a strange look in her eyes. Chapter 70. Nie Tian smiled faintly. It seemed that Jean de Bao had a lot of confidence in him. However, he really had no interest. If there was one person worthy of Nie Tian's attention, it would be the dean of Tyrant Cloud Academy. A 20-year-old true element boundary powerhouse with amazing talent was comparable to Mou's. One must know that Mou was one of the 3 monstrous geniuses of Shumi Spirit Capital. Forget it. I really have no interest. Nie Tian carefully thought about it and finally decided not to participate. Sigh. Jean de Bao sighed, feeling deeply regretful. Not interested? At this moment, an extremely unfriendly voice suddenly sounded behind him. Nie Tian turned around and a familiar figure appeared. It was Qin Yuhu. At this time, Qin Yuhu was wearing armor and looked majestic. Behind him were more than a dozen youths in the same attire. They were the people in charge of maintaining the scene of Tyrant Cloud Academy. Qin Yuhu had been injured by Nie Tian 3 days ago. Now, he had recovered. It seemed that he had eaten a lot of elixirs. Not interested? I think you don't dare. Qin Yuhu looked at Nie Tian with disdain, a playful expression on his face. Whether I dare or not is my business. What does it have to do with you? Nie Tian smiled faintly. He was not a 3-year-old child. Naturally, he would not fall for Qin Yuhu's provocation. Humph! Qin Yuhu sneered. He suddenly looked at Jean de Bao and said, Fatty Jean, you recognize a coward as your boss. This young master really feels that it's not worth it. Jean de Bao's fat face trembled. He roared, Second brother Qin, who this young master recognizes as boss is this young master's business. What do you have to do with it? Qin Yuhu crossed his arms in front of his chest and put on a look that was asking for a beating. He sneered, "Of course this is your business. This young master has nothing to do with it. But this young master thinks that you, Jean de Bao, are also a person with status. It's really a pity that you casually recognize a cat or dog as your boss. Qin Yuhu, be careful of your broken mouth. You can fart randomly, but you can't speak randomly. You dare to insult my boss. The consequences are not something you can bear." Jean de Bao roared angrily. Their quarrel immediately attracted the attention of countless onlookers, and they began to discuss it. Jean de Bao and Qin Yuhu. The Jean clan and Qin clan are sworn enemies. When these two young masters meet, the smell of gunpowder will be strong. Yes. Although the Jean family is rich, Jean de Bao is a little trash. Up till now, he's still at the first level essence spirit realm, far inferior compared to Qin Yuhu. I heard that Jean de Bao is often bullied by brother Qin Yuhu in the academy. I wonder if that's true? Listening to the discussions around him, Nie Tian could not help but frown. It seemed like Jean de Bao had suffered quite a bit from Qin Yuhu and his brother in Tyrant Cloud Academy. It was no wonder why he was so agitated upon seeing Qin Yuhu. Ouch! I'm just telling the truth. Why should young Master Jean get angry over a coward? Qin Yuhu laughed mockingly, glancing at Nie Tian from the corner of his eyes. A strange look flashed across his face. Jean de Bao was so angry that his fat face was red and swollen, but he was stopped by Nie Tian. Nie Tian looked at Qin Yuhu and said with a faint smile, "Since you want me to participate in this recruitment so much, then I'll participate." Hearing that Nie Tian was finally willing to participate in the recruitment, the corner of Qin Yuhu's mouth suddenly curled up, and a cold smile flashed across his face. "Boss, are you really going to participate?" Jean de Bao was so excited that he was about to jump up. If Nie Tian entered Tyrant Cloud Academy, he would no longer have to be bullied by the Qin brothers. Nie Tian nodded lightly. "That's great." Jean de Bao chuckled and said, "If boss participates in the recruitment, he'll definitely be the newcomer king. I also believe that big brother Nie Tian will be the newcomer king." Chiu Ling was also very happy. Newcomer king? Qin Yuhu sneered at this moment. He looked at Jean de Bao and said, "Fatty Jean, you dare to use your head to guarantee that he'll be the newcomer king? You're really bragging too much. Aren't you afraid that the wind will cut your tongue? This young master also dares to guarantee that this year's newcomer king is definitely not him. If you're not convinced, let's make a bet. How about it?" After saying this, Qin Yuhu's eyes revealed a hint of slyness. Nie Tian was slightly stunned. He could tell at a glance that Qin Yuhu was definitely brewing some kind of conspiracy. "Let's bet." Jean de Bao took a step forward and shouted, "Say it, what do you want to bet? I'm not afraid of betting my life. Young Master Jin's life is so cheap, I don't dare to take it." Qin Yuhu smiled contemptuously, and the slyness in his eyes became even more obvious. He said, "How about this? I know that your Jean family is rich. If I win, the Jean family will compensate the first-grade house to the Qin family. How about that?" The first-grade house. Jean de Bao's eyes suddenly widened, and he immediately hesitated. The first-grade house was the #1 restaurant in the Imperial City. From a certain point of view, it was also the symbol of the Jean family as the wealthiest in the Imperial City. Qin Yuhu wanted the first-grade house right off the bat. This bet seemed a little too big. But at this point, how could Jean de Bao back down? He immediately made up his mind and shouted, "Fine. I'll bet with you." At this time, Jean Ming wanted to pull Jean de Bao back but failed. When Jean de Bao's words left his mouth, his face turned pale. He thought that he had said it all, and his forehead was covered with beads of sweat. "Great." Qin Yuhu laughed and said, "Young Master Jean is indeed heroic." Jean de Bao laughed coldly. "Qin Yuhu, what if I win?" Qin Yuhu smiled slyly and said in a frivolous tone, "Say it yourself, what do you want?" As long as my Qin family has it, I'll give it to you. Jean de Bao thought for a moment, and as if he thought of something, he suddenly smiled. This young master heard that the Qin family has a set of rank 4 battle armor that was bestowed by the late emperor. If I win, I want this battle armor. Rank 4 battle armor. Only a rank 4 blacksmith could forge it. Even if an Origin Meridian martial artist wore it, it could withstand the attack of a giant spirit realm martial artist. It was very domineering. Its value was not lower than the first-grade house restaurant. Qin Yuhu was slightly stunned, but he immediately recovered and said with a smile, I couldn't tell. Fatty Jean, you're not stupid and know what good things are. It's rare that this young master is happy today. Rank 4 Golden Thunder battle armor, this young master will bet. Very good. Jean de Bao chuckled and suddenly said, I, Jean de Bao, am a man of my words. Even a spit can smash a hole. But your words, Qin Yuhu, are bullshit. I don't trust you. I want to find a witness for this bet. This young master has the same intention. Qin Yuhu smiled slyly and agreed readily. Nie Tian watched from the side, a bad premonition in his heart. Qin Yuhu had the strength of Wanxiang first level and had lost to Nie Tian before. Therefore, he definitely knew that the 3 rookie king-seeded contestants, Qin Feng, Liang Yunlong and Ling Tian, were not Nie Tian's match at all. But he was also so sure that Nie Tian could not win the rookie king. That meant that there would be an even more powerful person appearing in the recruitment this time. Who could this more powerful person be? At this time, many spectators gathered around, but they were all youths. No one was suitable to be a witness. This bet was too big. Ordinary people were not qualified to be a witness at all. Since the two of you are having so much fun, this prince also wants to play. I'll be your witness. How about it? Right at this time, a voice as cold as ice and light as gossamer suddenly sounded. Chapter 71. Jean de Bao and Qin Yuhu turned around at the same time and looked at the source of the voice. The crowd automatically dispersed, and a young man in luxurious clothes walked over calmly. The young man in luxurious clothes was about 14 or 15 years old. He was handsome and tall, but he had a cold aura and sharp eyes, giving off a gloomy feeling that did not match his age. His name was Lan Binji, the youngest son of the Blue Cloud Emperor and a prince of the Blue Cloud Empire. Although he was not the heir apparent, he was considered one of the strongest contenders for the throne. Prince Binji. Lan Binji walked over. Jean de Bao and Qin Yuhu hurriedly bowed. The surrounding people also bowed to show their respect. Nie Tian, however, was like a block of ice, not moving an inch. He only glanced at Lan Binji calmly and did not have any other reaction. Lan Binji was not angry. Instead, he looked at Nie Tian and smiled. A person who could make Master Zhang Yifeng acknowledge him as his master is indeed different. Nie Tian's name had spread throughout the imperial city recently. It was not surprising that Lan Binji knew of him. You're also very different, Nie Tian replied indifferently. Although he only glanced at Lan Binji, Nie Tian could feel that this person was gloomy and not easy to deal with. It was best not to provoke him. Moreover, Nie Tian sensed that Lan Binji was very strong. He was actually at the first level of all creations. He was a 14-year-old all creations martial artist with monstrous talent in martial arts. However, this talent paled in comparison to Nie Tian's. In his previous life, Nie Tian was already a spirit wheel warrior at the age of 14. His talent was 10 times better than Lan Binji's. Jean de Bao was afraid that Nie Tian would anger Lan Binji. He hurriedly stepped forward and said, Your Highness, are you really going to be our witness? Lan Binji glanced at Jean de Bao. An emperor does not joke. Emperor? Jean de Bao's heart skipped a beat. I don't think you are an emperor. The simple word, Jun, revealed Lan Binji's ambition. Qin Yuhu stole a glance at Lan Binji, as if he was confirming something. Then, he smiled sinisterly and bowed deeply to Lan Binji. Your Highness Binji is personally acting as a witness for this lowly one. This lowly one is in awe and trepidation. Jean de Bao rolled his eyes as he watched from the side. In the past, he only knew that Qin Yuhu had a bad character, but he didn't know that his bootlicking skills were so top-notch. Lan Binji casually waved his hand and said, "This prince has clearly heard your bet. If the two of you have no objection, this prince will reluctantly be a witness. What do you think?" "Your Highness Bingyi, I have no objections," Qin Yuhu quickly said. "I have no objections either." Jean de Bao nodded. With Lan Binji as a witness and so many spectators, Qin Yuhu wouldn't dare to go back on his word. "All right." The corners of Lan Binji's mouth curled up, his voice suddenly raising as he said in a clear voice, "This prince announces that the bet between Qin Yuhu and Jean de Bao takes effect immediately. No matter what the result is, neither side is allowed to go back on their word." "Good." The spectators cheered in unison. Jean de Bao looked at Nie Tian happily. He was very confident. He had seen with his own eyes how Nie Tian killed a saber-toothed dark panther in one move. Furthermore, Nie Tian had defeated Qin Yuhu. With such strength, how could Qin Feng, Liang Yunlong, or Ling Tian compare? However, at this moment, Jin Ming was on the verge of tears and almost collapsed. "The two of you, take your time. This prince has something to do, so I'll take my leave first." With a faint smile, Lan Binji turned around and left. The crowd automatically made way for him. "Your Highness, this lowly one will accompany you." Qin Yuhu chuckled and hurriedly followed. Before leaving, he didn't forget to sneer at Jean de Bao. "What are you so proud of? Do you really think you can win?" Jean de Bao angrily scolded. He then looked at Nie Tian and said, "Boss, this time it's all up to you. You must help this brother win the Qin family's rank 4 armor." "I'll do my best." Nie Tian nodded lightly. If there were only those guys at the 9th level of the Origin Spirit Realm among the freshmen this time, Nie Tian had a 100% chance of winning. However, he felt that Qin Yuhu wouldn't be so foolish. There seemed to be some conspiracy. Slowly, the crowd dispersed. However, Jin Ming suddenly burst into tears and shouted, "Young Master Jin!" Jean de Bao was stunned and said angrily, "What is this? Crying from agitation?" Jin Ming had a bitter look on his face. He suddenly said in a low voice, "Young Master Jin, I still have a piece of news that I haven't told you." "What news?" Jean de Bao's face darkened. He faintly felt uneasy. Jin Ming looked left and right. Seeing that there was no one around, he swallowed his saliva and said, "The Academy's newcomer king this time has been decided internally." "Internally decided newcomer king?" Jean de Bao was stunned. He had a doubtful look on his face. Impossible. Every year, Tyrant Cloud Academy would internally decide many names. However, internally decided newcomer king had never happened before. After all, the newcomer king was chosen during the freshman martial gathering. Could it be that he could control the outcome of the martial gathering? Jean de Bao's first reaction was that it was impossible. Internally decided? Qiu Ling was also very doubtful. She asked carefully, "Then who is the newcomer king?" Jin Ming's face froze. After a long time, he finally said a name, Prince of Binji. "Prince of Binji!" Jean de Bao screamed and almost jumped up. How was this possible? Lan Binji was a prince. With such a status, there was no need for him to participate in the recruitment. It was even less likely that he would be interested in the newcomer king reward. Jean de Bao would be the first to not believe that Lan Binji would be the newcomer king. However, the next moment, he suddenly thought of something and cried out, "Why is Prince of Binji here?" Jin Ming's entire body crumbled. "Prince of Binji is here to watch the freshman assessment." Jean de Bao froze. He was so stunned that he couldn't speak for a long time. This is too much. After a long time, Jean de Bao slapped his thigh and was about to cry. He finally understood why Qin Yuhu had taken the initiative to bet with him, and why Lan Binji had volunteered to be a witness. All of this was definitely a conspiracy. A blatant conspiracy. The first-grade residence was the symbol of the Jin family. Without the first-grade residence, would the Jin family still be the richest family in the imperial city? Half a day later, Jean de Bao finally calmed down. Jean Ming had a depressed look on his face as he explained, "I also don't know why Prince of Binji would participate in the recruitment of Tyrant Cloud. I just found out about this news not long ago. Originally, I wanted to tell young Master Jean as a surprise. Who knew? Surprise your sister?" Jean de Bao was already speechless. This time, he was really surprised. He was so surprised that he wanted to cry. Lan Binji was participating in the freshman selection. Who would dare to steal his limelight? As long as he appeared in the freshman selection, he would be the newcomer king. There was practically no need for it to be decided, and no one would dare to fight against him. Defeating Lan Binji was equivalent to slapping the royal family's face. Who dares? This question appeared in Jean de Bao's mind. An answer suddenly appeared. Nie Tian dares. De Bao. At this time, Nie Tian, who didn't have much reaction, finally opened his mouth and patted on Jean de Bao's shoulder. "Don't worry. I am definitely going to be the newcomer king." His voice wasn't loud, but it was like a sudden clap of thunder that completely woke Jean de Bao up. What kind of person was Nie Tian? He was an arrogant person that made one's hair stand on end. Back at the Alchemist Guild, even Zhang Yifeng had to kneel down and acknowledge him as his teacher. So what if he slapped the royal family's face? Without a doubt, no one would be able to stop Nie Tian. Chapter 72. Newcomer King. To Nie Tian, such an identity wasn't very attractive. Cultivation resources, elixirs, crystals, training rooms, spirit-gathering formation, he did not care about any of these. The only thing that interested him was the 20-year-old True Element Stage Dean of Tyrant Cloud Academy. Of course, he could also help Jean de Bao win the bet. More importantly, Nie Tian could see that this was a trap set by Qin Yuhu for Jean de Bao, waiting for Jean de Bao to fall into it. Nie Tian saw things very clearly. He knew that even if Jean de Bao did not make the bet with Qin Yuhu, the latter would still think of a way to trap Jean de Bao. Rather than passively waiting for Qin Yuhu to set up a new plot, it was better to simply dive into the plot and directly break it. In the face of true strength, all plots were futile. Nie Tian faintly felt that his biggest competitor in the freshman martial gathering was definitely Lan Binji. It was not because Lan Binji was the newcomer king, but because he was very strong. He would definitely be a formidable opponent. At this time, there was a sudden commotion in the plaza. A middle-aged martial artist appeared surrounded by a group of young martial artists. "Boss, Dean Fan is out. The freshman assessment is about to begin." Seeing the middle-aged martial artist, Jean de Bao was a little excited. The middle-aged martial artist was called Fan Jinwu, the vice dean of Tyrant Cloud Academy, one of the strongest martial artists in the Kingdom of Blue Clouds. Fan Jinwu was none other than Fan Jinji's elder brother, and the main culprit who framed Xiao Shan. Fan Jinwu did not reveal a trace of elemental energy. Just by standing there, he emitted a strong and dignified aura. The dozens of young martial artists around Fan Jinwu were all wearing the uniform of Tyrant Cloud Academy. Each of them had an imposing appearance and were full of arrogance. All of them were all creations martial artists. Fan Jinwu. Seeing Fan Jinwu appear from afar, Qiu Shan's eyes were bloodshot, and his whole body trembled. "Qiu Shan, don't be impulsive. If you want revenge, there will be plenty of opportunities in the future." Nie Tian put a hand on Qiu Shan's shoulder and said indifferently. Qiu Shan immediately calmed down and bowed. "Thank you for the reminder, Mr. Nie." Qiu Shan really wanted revenge, and he could not wait to tear Fan Jinwu into pieces and grind his bones into ashes. However, he was clearly no match for Fan Jinwu. At this time, the crowd dispersed. Fan Jinwu stepped onto the high platform, and his thunderous voice resounded. "Silence, everyone." His voice wasn't loud, but it had a strange power that could spread thousands of meters around the square, allowing everyone to hear it clearly. The originally noisy square immediately quieted down. Fan Jinwoo's sharp, eagle-like gaze swept across the square like a cold breeze. After a short while, he said in a low voice, "I'm the Vice Dean of Tyrant Cloud Academy, Fan Jinwoo. I am fully responsible for the enrollment this time." After a pause, Fan Jinwoo's voice became more oppressive. "Tyrant Cloud's recruitment requirements are very strict. The age of the examinees must be below 20 years of age, and their strength had at least reached the essence spirit realm. If anyone doesn't meet these two conditions, this old man advises you to leave on your own. Otherwise, if you're discovered, you'll have your yuan meridians crippled, and if it's serious, your life will be in danger." After saying that, a bright light shot out from his eyes, as if he could see through everyone. Those who were in his line of sight avoided him. Only one person didn't move, and looked straight at Fan Jinwoo with an extremely resolute gaze. Maybe it was a misperception, but Nye Tian felt that Fan Jinwoo's gaze was noticeably on him, as if he was a little surprised, and a little angry. This wasn't a misperception, Fan Jinwoo was indeed very angry. Although Nye Tian and Fan Jinwoo hadn't met face to face, they already knew each other's names. Nye Tian had almost fought with Fan Jinji, and had even become Zhang Yifeng's teacher a few days ago. This was already enough to attract Fan Jinwoo's attention. Fan Jinwoo swept his cold gaze across Nye Tian, and didn't say anything else. After announcing, he turned and left. "Now, let the freshman examination begin." Fan Jinwoo didn't care about the examination. What was truly important was the freshman martial meet. After a while, the examination officially began. The first was a strength test. There were more than 100 testing platforms on the square, and every testing platform had a 10-meter-tall strength testing steel. Beside the strength testing steel stood a student of Tyrant Cloud Academy, in charge of recording the results. The rules of the examination were very simple. The examinee struck the steel with all his strength, and with a strength of 5,000 kilograms, he would pass. The examinees were all Origin Spirit Realm martial artists. After awakening their Origin Spirit, their Origin Meridians would be strengthened quite a bit, and with the addition of martial skills, if they couldn't hit 5,000 kilograms of strength, it meant that their talent was too poor, and they didn't have the qualifications to enter Tyrant Cloud. Nye Tian walked to the nearest testing platform and stood in line. Jean DeBeo had been following beside him the whole time, and whispered, "Boss, the limit of the strength testing steel is 50,000 kilograms, you can just casually hit 20,000 kilograms, and shock them." Nye Tian smiled faintly and nodded. His current strength was at the 4th level of Origin Spirit Realm, and he had awakened the power of 16 stars in his body. A casual punch would have 20,000 kilograms of strength. The people in front of him started the examination one after another. 2,000 kilograms eliminated. 3,500 kilograms eliminated. 3,000 kilograms eliminated. Out of the tens of people in front, only one person hit 5,000 kilograms, barely passing. However, hitting 5,000 kilograms was only 1 point. The final ranking of Tyrant Cloud Academy used a point system, and in the strength test, every 5,000 kilograms was 1 point. If you could hit 50,000 kilograms, then you would get 10 points straight away. After martial artists awakened 9 essence meridians, they would normally be able to reach 1,000 kilograms of strength. After the Origin Spirit awakened, the power of the essence meridians would skyrocket by several times, reaching 3,000 to 4,000 kilograms of strength. If coupled with martial techniques, hitting 5,000 kilograms of strength was very normal. But to want to hit out with 10,000 kilograms of strength, one had to at least reach the 5th level of Origin Spirit Realm. People like Nye Tian, who was at the 4th level of Origin Spirit Realm, with pure strength exceeding several tens of thousands of kg, were completely monstrous. The majority of those taking the examination were first or second level origin spirit martial artists, so very few people could reach the standard of 5,000 kilograms. What a powerful origin spirit! At this time, an exclamation suddenly came from the front. Nie Tian looked over. On the testing platform there was a youth dressed in purple, looking 13 or 14 years old, with a huge black hammer floating behind him. His origin spirit surged, almost condensing into a material form. 9th level of origin spirit realm. His origin spirit was just a step away from condensing into a material form. Without a doubt, this youth was a 9th level origin spirit realm martial artist. Boss Nie Tian, this person is Qin Feng, Qin Yuhu's cousin, Jean de Bao said in a low voice. Qin Feng, Qin Yuhu's cousin. Nie Tian frowned slightly. Qin Feng, Liang Yunlong, Ling Tian. These three were people that Jin Ming specially reminded him to pay attention to. Nie Tian did not think that Qin Feng was actually Qin Yuhu's cousin. Looking at the latter's aura, his strength was very strong. Right at this time, Qin Feng on the stage move. Dominating Sky Hammer. Dominating Sky Strike. The aura of the dominating Sky Hammer skyrocketed, and with a loud bang, it hammered towards the strength testing monument. Boom! The enormous strength testing monument shook violently, and a pillar of light shot up 5 to 6 meters high, blinding everyone's eyes. Countless people stared at the strength testing monument. The blinding pillar of light caused the entire place to go silent, as if time had instantly stopped. 30,000 kilograms! The recording officer on the testing platform reacted with a face full of shock. The strength testing monument was 10 meters tall, and the limit was 50,000 kilograms. At this time, the pillar of light shot up 6 meters high. That meant that the strength of Qin Feng's hammer had reached a shocking 30,000 kilograms. 30,000 kilograms! Too terrifying! My God, could it be that Qin Feng is even more powerful than Qin Yuhu? Jean de Bao's fat face was pale. Chapter 73. The onlookers were shocked by Qin Feng's strength, but Nie Tian only smiled faintly. Qin Feng's Tyrant Sky Hammer is a strength-type elemental spirit. With the strength of a 9th level origin spirit and a high-level martial technique, it's not strange for him to strike with 30,000 kilograms of strength. Nie Tian looked at Qin Feng and thought. Qin Feng's display of strength was shocking, but Nie Tian was not afraid. With his current strength, even if he didn't use Star Souls, it was more than enough to deal with Qin Feng. The commotion caused by Qin Feng took a long time to calm down. After a while, Nie Tian walked to the testing platform. It was his turn. Boss, do your best. Jean de Bao nodded heavily, but he was sweating in his heart. Qin Feng's display of strength was too strong, and he couldn't help but worry. To win the bet, Nie Tian's enemy wasn't just Lan Binji alone, but everyone, including Qin Feng. Needless to say, after seeing Qin Feng's strength, Jean de Bao felt a little guilty. Nie Tian leaped and stepped onto the testing platform. Look, it's that guy. He's called Nie Tian, Grandmaster Zhang Yifeng's teacher. Just now, Jean de Bao and Qin Yuhu made a bet on whether or not he could take the crown of Rookie King. Is this guy really that strong? Is he worth Jean de Bao using first-grade residence as a wager? Tisk. I think he's just average, far from Qin Feng, much less Prince Binji. This time, the Rookie King is definitely Prince Binji. The others are all cannon fodder. It's a pity that young Master Jean is going to lose first-grade residence. That's right, this guy is just a loach that popped out of nowhere, using his luck as a lackey. He still thinks he's a dragon. He wants to show off in the Imperial City, and in the end, he won't even be able to wear his pants. Nie Tian's appearance immediately attracted whispers from the crowd. Qin Feng was also watching at this moment, and he laughed disdainfully. This is the guy who castrated Qin Yulong? He looks very average. Nie Tian scanned the crowd below the stage and heard all the discussions. The corners of his lips curled up in an evil manner as he thought to himself, "Since you guys don't want to see me in the limelight, then I will steal everyone's limelight." He was now a famous person in Blue Cloud City. His identity as Zhang Yifeng's teacher alone made countless people jealous. Who knew how many people were waiting to see him make a fool of himself? However, he would definitely not let these people get what they wanted. The strength measuring monument. If I remember correctly, it should be testing the strongest point of strength. As long as I focus my strength on one point, the value of my strength will definitely be higher, Nie Tian said in his heart. Nie Tian was very clear about the principles of the strength measuring monument. The strength measuring monument was very sensitive and it tested the strongest point of the attack. Normally, when people see such a huge strength testing steel, they would choose to use a large area of effect martial technique and try their best to deal a huge blow to the strength testing steel. This was precisely entering the wrong zone. Just like Qin Feng, if he could use a more suitable martial technique, his strength would definitely be more than 30,000 Jin. I am currently at the Origin Spirit level 4 and have awakened the power of 16 stars in my body. My pure strength is about 40,000 Jin. If combined with the Eastern Emperor Finger or the Divine War Emperor Fist, my strength would definitely exceed 50,000 Jin. If I focus all my strength on one point, the instant attack may be able to pierce through the strength testing steel. Calculating in his heart, Nie Tian frowned slightly. He was very dissatisfied with his current strength. The limit of the strength testing steel was 50,000 Jin. However, to pierce through the strength testing steel, one would need at least 70,000 Jin of strength. Nie Tian wanted to directly pierce through the strength testing steel. "Brat, if you don't dare to make a move, then scram. Don't waste my time." Seeing that Nie Tian did not make a move, the examiner had an impatient expression and coldly reprimanded. Nie Tian glanced at him and did not say anything. He already had an idea in his heart. Since he had decided to be in the limelight, then he might as well make a big one. And a big one at that. With that thought, he no longer hesitated. He took a step forward and activated his elemental meridians. His elemental energy surged and a strong aura enveloped his entire body. Nie Tianling looked coldly at the strength-testing steel in front of him. His eyes were filled with extreme determination. "Brat, are you going to make a move or not? No matter how good your posture is, if you can't shit, what's the use?" Seeing that Nie Tian had not made a move, the examiner became even more impatient. Nie Tianling glanced at him coldly and in the next moment, his body moved. He was going to make a move. The elemental energy in his body surged and he raised his arm slightly. It was a simple movement, but it revealed a heart-palpitating aura. His eyes were like torches and as cold as iron. In the next moment, Nie Tian pointed with both of his fingers and the air-breaking technique exploded, causing the surrounding atmosphere to shake. A whistling sound could be heard in the air. The Eastern Emperor Finger caused the air to spin and like an arrow, it shot towards the strength-testing steel. Purring! A dull sound could be heard. The 10-meter-tall strength-testing steel shook slightly and there was no more movement. The scene suddenly stopped as if it was frozen. Everyone stared at the testing platform, not knowing what had happened. Just at this moment, suddenly, from the bottom of the strength-testing steel, a pillar of light shot up into the sky, blinding everyone's eyes. Looking at the pillar of light that shot up to the top of the strength-testing steel, the entire place was dead silent. The gazes of the surrounding testing platforms were also attracted by the pillar of light. They all looked over and were all stunned. A 10-meter pillar of light. The strength-testing steel only shook and didn't even shake? Did I really see it correctly? That was what everyone was thinking. Everything was too unbelievable. A 10-meter pillar of light meant 50,000 kilograms of force, but the strength-testing steel didn't even shake. How was this possible? But that was the truth. It had clearly happened. 10 meters. After a while, the examiner finally reacted and looked at the transparent hole on the strength-testing steel in shock. The shock in his heart was at its peak. With one finger, the strength-testing steel was actually pierced through. The limit of the strength-testing steel was 50,000 kilograms, but to pierce through the strength-testing steel, one would need at least 70,000 kilograms of force. Even a manifestation realm martial artist might not be able to possess 70,000 kilograms of force. The examiner looked at Nie Tian as if he was looking at a monster. His eyes were filled with deep shock, and at the same time, there was a hint of fear. Nie Tian had a calm look, the corner of his mouth hooked up into a strange smile, and muttered, "Break!" Crack, crack, crack. Just as he said that, spider web-like cracks suddenly appeared on the place where the strength-testing steel was pierced through. Rumble! In the next moment, a loud sound rang out and the enormous strength-testing steel suddenly shattered. Under everyone's gaze, it became a pile of crushed stones. How is this possible? Just casually pointing a finger and he actually shattered the strength-testing steel. This was too shocking. Everyone was stupefied in an instant. They widened their eyes and looked at Nie Tian in disbelief. Nie Tian smiled faintly and jumped down from the testing platform. Since so many people wanted to see him make a fool of himself, he had to be in the limelight. Nie Tian's guess towards the strength-testing steel was completely correct, and his grasp of his own strength was also incomparably accurate. The main reason why he was able to control his strength so well was because of Nie Tian's strong mental power. What Nie Tian wanted was to be in the limelight. Chapter 74. After a long time, when Nie Tian walked down from the testing platform, the audience was still in shock and had yet to recover from their shock. At this moment, a pair of sinister eyes stared at Nie Tian viciously from afar. "You like to show off so much? You're courting death." Lan Bingyi's face darkened, as if he had been slapped in the face in front of everyone. He was a prince, and the most beloved prince of the emperor. Ever since he was young, he had been surrounded by an unparalleled halo, which made him look down on everyone. This time, he participated in the Cloud Tyrant selection with another purpose, which was to raise his prestige in the kingdom of blue clouds. If he could show off his strength in the Cloud Tyrant selection, shock everyone, and take the crown of the Rookie King, then, his reputation and prestige in the kingdom of blue clouds would definitely soar. This would undoubtedly be beneficial for him in the fight for the throne. But now, someone wanted to steal his limelight. In Lan Bingyi's eyes, this was intolerable. At this moment, Nie Tian was on his death list. Walking down from the testing platform, Nie Tian had a smile on his face, and he looked very relaxed. Jean Debao, Qiu Shan, Qiu Linger, Niyuro, and the rest were extremely excited as they looked at Nie Tian. "Boss, you're awesome. No wonder you're my boss." "Ha!" Jean Debao almost jumped up. The strength that Nie Tian had displayed was too shocking, and he was very excited. "Big brother Nie Tian is so powerful," Niyuro said happily. Qiu Linger also exerted a force of 10,000 pounds, but compared to Nie Tian, she was far from it. Qiu Shan looked at Nie Tian, and besides surprise, there was more shock in his eyes. He felt that he could not see through this young man in front of him anymore. The looks in the eyes of the surrounding people changed as well. The disdain and contempt from before had completely disappeared, and it was replaced by shock and fear. This was the majesty of a powerhouse. Strength would always be the greatest authority. So it feels so good to be in the limelight. Not bad. Nie Tian smiled faintly and thought to himself. Next, the strength test continued. With Nie Tian's performance, very few people caused a commotion. Only Liang Yunlong and Ling Tian, who were equally as famous as Qin Feng, caused a small ruckus when they fought with 30,000 kilograms. As for Lan Bingyi, he did not participate in the assessment, but directly entered the freshman martial meet. This was decided by his status as a prince. Being able to participate in the freshman martial meet was already unprecedented. In the past, the members of the imperial family would enter Tyrant Cloud Academy directly. A few hours later, the strength test ended. Just this alone eliminated 95% of the participants. In the blink of an eye, there were only a few hundred people left out of the more than 10,000 examinees. Next was the second test, the elemental spirit test. Everyone get out of the way! Just at this moment, a shout rang out. Dozens of gray-clothed cultivators appeared, and the crowd automatically made way for them. Under the protection of the gray-clothed martial artists, more than a dozen finely dressed alchemists slowly walked over. The Yuan Spirit Test, as the name suggested, was to test the aptitude of a martial artist's Yuan spirit. Of course, ordinary martial artists did not have the qualifications to assess the aptitude of an elemental spirit, only respected alchemists had this qualification. Zhang Yifeng. From afar, Nie Tian saw that the leader of the alchemists was none other than Zhang Yifeng. Boss, it's Grandmaster Zhang. Jean Debao also noticed Zhang Yifeng and chuckled. Teacher. Zhang Yifeng saw Nie Tian from afar, and quickly walked over, bowing respectfully to the latter. Nie Tian glanced at Zhang Yifeng, nodded and said, "Both eyes have returned to normal, and the redness between his eyebrows has also disappeared. Not bad. Thank you, teacher, for saving me." Zhang Yifeng bowed again, very respectfully. He followed Nie Tian's instructions, and indeed succeeded in suppressing the doomsday flames in his body, and had gradually returned to normal. When the crowd saw Zhang Yifeng bowing to Nie Tian, they all cried out in surprise. Although most of them knew that Zhang Yifeng had become Nie Tian's disciple, but seeing it with their own eyes, they still found it hard to believe. "You go." Nie Tian did not want to waste Zhang Yifeng's time, and moved aside to let him pass. After a while, hundreds of participants arrived at the Yuan Spirit Test Hall. There were a total of 6 test rooms, and in each room, there were 2 alchemists and 4 gray-clothed martial artists. Zhang Yifeng and another alchemist, Zhang Yu, were in the first room. "Respected alchemist, my name is Li Longman." The first tester appeared and was very respectful. "Begin." Zhang Yifeng nodded and said. Li Longman did not dare to be negligent, and immediately revealed his Yuan spirit, which was a porcupine. He operated his Yuan meridian, and under the surge of Yuan Qi, the Yuan spirit looked more solid, and the bristles on its body stood up, giving people a feeling of sharpness. Li Longman put in a lot of effort, but unfortunately, Zhang Yifeng and Zhang Yu only glanced at him, and then looked at each other, and directly gave the result. 1 point. 1 point? Hearing this result, Li Longman's body trembled, and his whole body exuded an uncontrollable anger. He tried his best to show his Yuan spirit, but Zhang Yifeng and Zhang Yu only glanced at him, and did not even see what his Yuan spirit was, and directly gave him 1 point. It was really infuriating. Zhang Yifeng slightly raised his head, and glared at Li Longman. Immediately, the gray-clothed martial artist behind him made his move. Bang! A huge fist shadow flew over, and directly blasted Li Longman out of the room. "What a dog! How dare you question Master Zhang Yifeng's judgment? Courting death!" An angry roar came from the room. Li Longman lay on the ground, unable to get up for a long time. But the surrounding people all looked at him with disdain and contempt, without the slightest bit of sympathy. This was the rule of this world: without strength, one had no right to speak. Originally, the Yuan Spirit Test was the most important test, even more important than the test of strength, because the aptitude of the Yuan Spirit determined the martial artist's future achievements. But the Yuan Spirit Test of Tyrant Cloud Academy was just a formality, because there were too many kinds of Yuan spirits, and they were too complicated. Even alchemists could not really evaluate the aptitude of the Yuan spirit. Only the Yuan spirit wheel could test the aptitude of the Yuan spirit. The Yuan spirit wheel was the spiritual tool that Mo Feng used to test Mo Rushi's Yuan spirit. The Yuan spirit wheel was a 7th rank spiritual tool, and only big sects and forces had it. In the whole Blue Cloud Empire, no one had seen what the Yuan Spirit Wheel looked like. Without the Yuan Spirit Wheel, the Yuan Spirit Test had become the most unreliable test. The same Yuan Spirit was randomly graded, ranging from 1 point to 10 points, and it was decided by the alchemist. Those disciples of big clans who had been decided internally relied on the Yuan Spirit Test to surpass the others. With Li Longman as an example, no one dared to express any dissatisfaction in the following test. Those disciples of big clans came out of the testing room, and all of them had smiles on their faces, while the commoner disciples all had sullen faces. This was something that couldn't be helped. This world was unfair to begin with. Soon, it was Nie Tian's turn. Coincidentally, the group he was in was Zhang Yifeng's test. Without any hesitation, Nie Tian strode into the testing room.